Chapter 1283. The leader of the three was a handsome young man in a robe and a crown. His eyes seemed to contain the brilliance of the stars, and he looked calm and profound. Who else could it be but Gu Xiaoyang? Beside him were two young men in silver. They were Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Xiyu. Its young master Xingyun from the Starry Sword Pavilion, and the remaining two young Star Lords. Why are they here? Don't tell me they're also here to snatch the sage's opportunity? If that was the case, the situation would be much more interesting. Oh, you're here too. Chu Xuanzhen's expression did not change much when he saw Gu Xiaoyang. Although they were both young masters, Gu Xiaoyang was a newly promoted young master. Chu Xuanzhen, on the other hand, was a real veteran young master. In terms of background, the Celestial Sword sect was not inferior to the Starry Sword Pavilion. Therefore, Chu Xuanzhen was calm about Gu Xiaoyang's arrival. He was not afraid that Gu Xiaoyang would attack him. However, Jian Jinghong, Xuanlian, and the others did not think so. Gu Xiaoyang. He's here with ill intentions. Jian Jinghong looked serious. Just by looking at Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Xiyu's venomous eyes, one could see their attitude towards the Sword Dynasty. The news that Yi Guqin killed Jiang Wangqing and Jiang Yuanlong had already spread throughout the Holy Imperial world. Under such circumstances, Gu Xiaoyang and the others' arrival was definitely not a good thing. Are you here to fight for the saint's inheritance as well? Chu Xuanzhen asked calmly. Hee, Brother Chu, you must be joking. Although the saint's inheritance is good, it's not the only place in the saint's inheritance land. We're here to help Brother Chu solve these problems. Gu Xiaoyang smiled faintly. Jian Jinghong and the others' hearts sank as soon as they heard that. Oh, I see. Chu Xuanzhen said calmly. In fact, he was confident that he could deal with any situation. However, since Gu Xiaoyang and the others were willing to help, Chu Xuanzhen could not refuse. Jiang Qingsong's eyes carried a bone-chilling coldness as he looked at Jian Jinghong and the others and said, although every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor, the death of my two brothers will still be blamed on your Sword Dynasty. If you want to fight, then fight. What's with all the nonsense? Jian Jinghong said coldly. Since they had already reached this point, there was no point in saying anything more. A great battle immediately broke out. On one side were Chu Xuanzhen, Gu Xiaoyang, Jiang Qingsong, and Jiang Xiyu. On one side were Jian Jinghong, Xuanlian, and Kong Kong. All the Sky Prides present were well aware that there would be no suspense in the outcome of such a battle. Even so, the performance of Jian Jinghong and the other two had exceeded everyone's expectations. In addition, there were also Xuanlian and Kong Kong. Their methods also attracted the attention of all the geniuses. Great thunderclap sword art. Xuanlian brazenly brandished his sword. His voice was as loud as thunder, as if he was chanting Buddhist scriptures. Kong Kong also used his unique skill, Kasayapa sword seal. Kong Kong's petite body surged with endless golden light. He was like a young Buddha. At this moment, he actually had a solemn look. Countless golden swastikas floated around his body, making him look mysterious. Oh, interesting. It doesn't look like a martial art from the Nantian region. Instead, it looks like a Buddhist unique skill from the Shihuang region. Chu Xuanzhen's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. He was quite interested. As a Sky Pride from an Overlord level force, his vision was naturally not comparable to ordinary Sky Prides. At a glance, he could tell that Xuanlian and the others might not be local Sky Prides from the Nantian region. However, this did not mean anything. Martial artists from other regions were often seen in the Nantian region. It was not rare. Xuanlian and Kong Kong's methods surprised Gu Xiaoyang and the others. It was not that easy for them to suppress Xuanlian and the others. Tsk. I thought that Jian Jinghong and the others would not be able to hold on for more than 15 minutes when 4 Overlord-level Sky Prides attacked at the same time. I didn't expect them to hold on for so long. Yeah, this is a little unfair. If Jian Jinghong, Xuanlian and the others could be trained by the Overlord-level forces, they might not be weaker than Chu Xuanzhen and Gu Xiaoyang. Many onlookers sighed and felt that it was a pity. However, Jian Jinghong, Xuanlian and Kong Kong's performance was amazing. Their enemies were even more terrifying. Young Master Xuanzhen, Chu Xuanzhen, and Young Master Xingyun, Gu Xiaoyang. 2 of the 10 young masters were enemies. If it were any other sky prides, they would definitely be defeated. In the end, after half an hour, Jian Jinghong, Xuanlian, and Kong Kong were still a little weaker and were defeated. The three of them were blasted back. They coughed out blood and their auras weakened. Especially Jian Jinghong. He was already injured. Now that he was seriously injured, he would have fainted if it were not for his strong will. You are just like ants. You wasted so much of my time. Chu Xuanzhen's eyes were cold and he was about to kill them. However, Gu Xiaoyang stopped him and said, "Young Master Xuanzhen, please wait. Let them live for now." Why? Chu Xuanzhen's eyes flashed. Gu Xiaoyang was definitely not a kind person. Nothing. I just want to kill all 13 sword princes of the Sword Dynasty, especially Jiankui, Gu Xiaoyang said. Gu Xiaoyang did not know that Jiankui's real identity was Yi Guqin. Therefore, he did not have much of a grudge against Jiankui. However, this was the request of Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Xiyu. They wanted to suppress all 13 sword princes, and then kill the other 12 sword princes one by one in front of Yi Guqin. Only in this way could they vent the resentment and anger in their hearts. Do as you wish, Chu Xuanzhen said calmly. To be honest, Chu Xuanzhen did not have a good impression of Yi Guqin. Previously, at the trade fair in the sacred city of Fortune, Chu Xuanzhen wanted to exchange for Su Qiqing. However, Yi Guqin intercepted him, and even embarrassed him a little. Since Gu Xiaoyang and the others wanted to kill Yi Guqin, Chu Xuanzhen naturally would not stop them. Don't even think about it. Jian Jinghong and the others' eyes were sharp. Humph, there is only one end for you 13 sword princes. You will all be killed. Gu Xiaoyang and the others attacked and suppressed Jian Jinghong, Xuanlian and Kong Kong. They used special methods to seal their spiritual dwellings and meridians, so that they could not break free. Next, released the news that Jian Jinghong, Xuanlian, and the others are suppressed by us and can be killed at any time. If you want them to live, ask Jiankui to come and save them, Gu Xiaoyang said. He had already planned how to deal with the 13 sword princes. In addition, Gu Xiaoyang faced the surrounding sky prides and said again, "Also, if any of you can capture the other sword princes, I, Gu Xiaoyang, can guarantee with my dignity that I will recruit you into the Starry Sword Pavilion." Gu Xiaoyang's words were like a huge rock that fell into the sea and caused an uproar again. As long as they captured a sword prince, they would definitely be able to join the Starry Sword Pavilion. This condition was not bad, and was very attractive. At least for those sky prides who had no hope of being chosen by an overlord force. This might be their only chance to qualify to join an overlord force. Looking at those sky prides whose eyes were faintly glowing with red light, Gu Xiaoyang's lips curled into a relaxed smile. "Jiankui, what do you have to fight me?" Gu Xiaoyang's scheming and shrewdness were not inferior to his strength. Otherwise, Gu Xiaoyang would not have been able to snatch Yi Guqin's innate sword embryo. Chapter 1284. News of what happened in the sacred land of inheritance spread out at an alarming speed. The first piece of news was that Jian Jinghong, Xuanlian, and the others had been suppressed by Gu Xiaoyang and Chu Xuanzhen. Gu Xiaoyang spread the news that he wanted Jiankui to come personally, or he would kill them. The second piece of news made some sky prides even more excited. Anyone who could capture the sword son of the Sword Dynasty could join the Starry Sword Pavilion. No one doubted Gu Xiaoyang's words. After all, as one of the 10 great young masters and a seed-level sky pride of the Starry Sword Pavilion, his words carried a lot of weight in the Starry Sword Pavilion. It was not difficult for him to recruit some sky prides to join the Starry Sword Pavilion. As the news spread, many people began to set their sights on the 13th sword son. As the saying went, when there was a great reward, there would be courageous men. For those sky prides who had no hope of joining an overlord-level force, Gu Xiaoyang's words were their only hope. Because of this, the sword sons of the Sword Dynasty who entered the sacred land of inheritance were surrounded and killed by many people. After all, for these sky prides, if they did not take the risk, they would have no chance at all. However, if they took the risk, they might be able to become a disciple of an overlord-level force. Somewhere in the sacred land of inheritance, a beautiful woman with light blonde hair in a palace dress was surrounded by 5 or 6 sky prides. "You're too reckless. Do you know who you've offended?" This woman was none other than Tsuki Miyazaki. However, she was in a sorry state. Her red lips were stained with blood, and her beautiful eyes were filled with anger as she stared at the sky prides surrounding her. TSK, what a beauty! Unfortunately, if we want to join an overlord-level force, we have to suppress you and hand you over to young Master Xingyun. A sky pride shook his head and sighed. If it were not for young Master Xingyun's words, they would not have offended the sword son of the Sword Dynasty. Young Master Xingyun, damn it! Tsuki Miyazaki was so angry that her body trembled. She had also heard of the previous news. It was clearly the 4-star lords who had provoked Yi Guchen's group first before Yi Guchen struck back. In the end, the 2-star venerates fell, yet they still used such a despicable method to take revenge. This was truly a new low. Hee beauty, don't resist. We don't want to hurt you either. Another sky pride sneered. I, the sword son of the Sword Dynasty, will not allow myself to be captured without a fight. Tsuki Miyazaki resisted, but in the end he was still suppressed. Then these geniuses brought him to Gu Xiaoyang. The same scene was happening in other corners of the sage land of inheritance. Jiang Fingmian, Ling Emoshu, Suzy Heo. There were also Mu Xingzu, Ling Maoyin, and Han Lingxian. They were all besieged. Some of the stronger ones, such as Jiang Fingmian and Mu Xingzu, were even chased and surrounded by dozens of sky prides at the same time. Enough ants could kill an elephant. Besides, none of the sky prides who could enter the sacred imperial field were simple. They all had some skills. Therefore, the 13 sword sons of the Sword Dynasty were all in a precarious situation. Naturally, the people outside the sacred emperor's world were able to witness this as well. Confuzi, Wu Hongyan, and the others from the Sword Dynasty were so angry that their livers were shaking. They looked at the starry sword pavilion coldly. The 7th star lord and the others were indifferent. They didn't think there was anything wrong with what Gu Xiaoyang had done. On the other hand, Elder Qing Song from the Luofu Sword Pavilion said sarcastically, "Is this what the Starry Sword Pavilion does? Why do I feel that it's more demonic than the demonic sect of destruction?" Old man, if you want to say something, just say it. Can you not compare me to the demonic sect of destruction? In another place, there was a cloud of black mist floating and an old man's voice was heard. He was a demonic saint from the demonic sect of destruction. Elder Qing Song smiled awkwardly. The 7th star lord said unhurriedly, "I don't think Gu Xiaoyang has done anything wrong. On the contrary, he's very smart. He knows how to defeat the enemy in the fastest way. How a crooked stick will have a crooked shadow." Elder Qing Song waved his sleeve. As for Confuzi, Wu Hongyan, and the others, even though they were angry, they couldn't say anything. The Sword Dynasty was the top dynasty and they had half-step saint kings like the proud divine prefecture. But in terms of resources and strength, they were far inferior to the Starry Sword Pavilion. Therefore, even though they were angry, they could only pray in their hearts that the Sword Sons could survive this crisis. In the sacred imperial field, the only sky pride from the Sword Dynasty who hadn't been disturbed was probably Yi Guchen. At the moment, he was sitting cross-legged on a golden cushion, comprehending various techniques. One had to admit that the opportunity in Enlightenment Mountain had helped Yi Guchen a lot. The vision of an immortal saint emperor was extraordinary. The first technique that Yi Guchen comprehended was the sword technique of 8 extremities reincarnation. Yi Guchen had already comprehended 8 moves of this royal-level sword technique. He only had to fuse the last 8 moves. Now, with the help of the golden cushion, Yi Guchen comprehended this royal-level sword technique with the vision of an immortal saint emperor. Naturally, it was much easier. The last move, 8 extremities reincarnation, was finally comprehended by Yi Guchen. Not only that, Yi Guchen even faintly comprehended a trace of the sword essence of reincarnation from it. Of course, it was just a trace. After all, the sword essence of reincarnation was a sword essence of creation. It wasn't easy to comprehend it, but it was a good start. At least Yi Guchen had a little feeling. If he had other opportunities in the future, he might be able to continue comprehending it. Next was the sword essence of all creation. This sword essence was one of the 4 sword essences that Yi Guchen had comprehended in his previous life. It was comparable to a sword essence of creation. After such a long period of comprehension, with the help of the golden cushion, Yi Guqian finally transformed the sword essence of all creation into the sword principle of all creation. He also comprehended the sword territory of the sword principle of all creation, the universe of all swords. Yi Guqian believed that the creation realm of Sword Tao, the universe of 10,000 swords, would not disappoint him. After that was the ultimate sword domain. This was a unique skill that originated from one of the three hidden forces, the sword tribe of Sky Mountain. Yi Guqian had always attached great importance to it. Of course, it was extremely difficult to cultivate the ultimate sword territory. After all, 2 sword territories were 3 sword territories. The fusion of 4 sword territories was too much of a test of one's comprehension and strength. Yi Guqian had comprehended the double sword territory previously. The 3 sword territory was just a preliminary step. But now, after this period of comprehension, Yi Guqian had completely stabilized the fusion of the 3 sword territories. In other words, Yi Guqian could now stably fuse the 3 sword territories of all creation. The only thing that Yi Guqian felt was a pity was that he was still unable to stabilize it and fuse the sword territory of all creation into the ultimate sword territory. It was more difficult to fuse the sword territory of all creation into the ultimate sword territory than the sword territory of all creation. But Yi Guqian believed that he would naturally have the ability to fuse the sword territory of all creation in the future. These were the gains that Yi Guqian had made during this period of time in Tao Comprehension Mountain. Of course, there was an even more important trump card. Yi Guqian had also comprehended it during this period of time. He was confident that this move would become his ultimate move. Chapter 1285. I'm almost done with my cultivation. Going too far is as bad as falling short. I won't gain much if I continue to stay here. On top of the Enlightenment Mountain, on the golden futon, Yi Guqian slowly opened his eyes and exhaled. During this period of comprehension, Yi Guqian's harvest could be said to be extremely rich. He had completely comprehended the 8 extremities reincarnation sword technique. He had comprehended the all-creation sword principle and the sword principle territory, the universe of swords. He could completely fuse the 3 sword fields with the ultimate sword field. He had also successfully cultivated the trump card. In addition, Yi Guqian had also reorganized and consolidated the various other sword skills and martial arts. It could be said that Yi Guqian had gained a lot from the Enlightenment Mountain. Although his cultivation realm did not increase, his combat power had increased by more than a few times compared to before. He also had a lot more trump cards. If I wasn't completely confident of defeating Gu Xiaoyang, Huang Qianqiu, and the others before, now I'm confident that I can settle my grudge with Gu Xiaoyang in the Sacred Emperor world. Yi Guqian's eyes were bright, and he was very confident. This was not arrogance, but a measure of his own strength. The current Yi Guqian would not be too weak even if he were to fight against the 4 emperors. And Huang Qianqiu, what happened in the Sacred Emperor Palace's treasure will not happen again. Yi Guqian had not forgotten how Huang Qianqiu had looked down on him in the Sacred Dynasty's treasure, and how he had even destroyed his spiritual abode. Although Yi Guqian had benefited from the disaster and rebuilt his spiritual abode, this grudge could not be easily erased. It's about time. It's time to start searching for the Sacred Emperor's opportunity. Yi Guqian did not forget what Beimiao had said to him in the realm of Weakwater. The greatest opportunity in the Sacred Emperor world was the Sacred Emperor's opportunity. Yi Guqian had the Golden Lotus Seed, and was the most qualified person to obtain the Sacred Emperor's opportunity. If he could obtain the Sage Emperor's opportunity, the North Nether Lord would also be of help to him. In the future, if Yi Guqian had a conflict with the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion, Heavenly God Sword Sect, and other forces, North Nether King would become an important force for Yi Guqian. Thus, no matter how one looked at it, Yi Guqian needed to obtain the Sage Emperor's fortune. If I can obtain the Sage Emperor's opportunity, I might have enough strength to kill Di Haotian. Yi Guqian's ultimate goal was not Gu Xiaoyang or Huang Qianqiu, but Di Haotian, the heavenly true dragon. This was the enemy that he had sworn to kill. On another Tao Comprehension Mountain, Dugu Qiuma sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. During this period of time, his gains were also extraordinary. His comprehension of the 13 demonic swords had improved once again. In addition to the 7th sword, Earth Reversal, Duguchioma had also comprehended the 8th sword. Duguchioma had also comprehended 2 of the 7 limits of devouring the heavens and destroying the earth. Furthermore, Duguchioma had some preliminary understanding of the creation-level devouring sword Dao that came with the God Devourer sword. Of course, apart from these great gains, the most important thing for Duguchioma was to create his own sword technique. With Duguchioma's talent and comprehension, it would be fine if he did not create his own sword technique. Once he created it, it would be earth-shattering. I, Duguchioma, have made some progress in creating my own sword technique. Duguchioma also opened his eyes. The dark golden eyes of the soul devourer demon flickered with a cold light. Yi Guchen's self-created sword technique, Emotions of Heaven and Vast Ocean of Sorcery, were 2 sword techniques that incorporated emotions into the sword Dao. Duguchioma's heart was cold and emotionless. The sword technique that he created was purely for killing. Therefore, it was easy to imagine how powerful and lethal his self-created sword technique would be. Duguchioma was confident that his self-created sword move would shock the universe, and even make Yi Guchen's true body look at it in a different light. Almost at the same time, Guzun, who was sitting cross-legged on the golden futon, also opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, it seemed as if a heaven-shaking saber intent had surged out. Guzun's gains were equally great. In addition, Zhao Shinkong, Zhao Xiaodi, Princess Luoho, Dao Wuming, Yue, Wan and the others who were only a hair's breadth away from reaching the peak had also made great gains. Although they might not have made as great gains as Yi Guchen and the other 2, they were still the group closest to the peak after all. Naturally, their comprehension of the Dao was very good. The rest were the geniuses who remained at the various levels. Based on the difference in their levels, their gains in comprehending the Dao would also vary. Looks like Jiankui and the others have also finished comprehending the Dao. I wonder how much they've gained? They've probably made great gains. How can the opportunities left behind by the sacred emperor be ordinary? Some geniuses said enviously. Yi Guchen got up from the golden futon and walked out. Since he had already obtained the opportunities, Yi Guchen had no reason to be reluctant to part with them. The moment he walked out, Zhao Shinkong's gaze locked onto Yi Guchen. During this period of comprehension, Zhao Shinkong had also made great gains and his confidence had increased. Although Zhao Shinkong knew that Yi Guchen had made great gains, he wasn't Yi Guchen after all, and didn't know how much his strength had increased. Therefore, he was very confident about this battle. Jiankui, there's nothing more to say. Let's fight. Zhao Shinkong issued a challenge. Zhao Xiaodi clenched her fists and bit her lip. She didn't try to dissuade him anymore, as she knew her brother's personality. Once he had decided on something, he would definitely do it regardless of the outcome. Alright, I'll fight you. Yi Guchen agreed extremely straightforwardly as well. Although they were on opposing sides, Zhao Shinkong's refusal to take advantage of the situation still made Yi Guchen see him in a new light. However, that was all. If he had to fight, he would fight. Yi Guchen and Zhao Shinkong both left Dao Comprehension Mountain. The other geniuses all looked over with interest. The geniuses of the other 4 Dao Comprehension Mountains, Dao Wuming, Guzun, Yue, Wan and so on all stared over. There was no need to doubt Zhao Shinkong's strength. Yi Guchen had also proven his strength by killing a few of the 4-star lords. After the transformation of Dao Comprehension Mountain, everyone wanted to know just who was stronger between the 2 of them. Zhao Shinkong wore platinum white dragon-patterned armor and wielded the Daoyuo golden spear. He stood tall and straight like a god of war. He gave off a powerful presence that could sweep through the surroundings. On the other hand, Yi Guchen wore black robes and a ghastly mask. He wielded the 9-dragon lightning prison sword, making him seem as unfathomable as an ancient well. It was possible to say that the 2 of them were the only prodigies of the empire apart from Dugu and Chioma. And now, how intense would the battle between them be? Jiankui, let's put aside our grievances. Let's just compete today. Is your sword sharper, or is my spear more invincible? With that, Zhao Shinkong stomped off the ground and shot out like a bolt of lightning. His presence surged out. Alright, I'll fight you. Yi Guchen also unleashed his presence. He used the movement secret technique, moving like a bolt of lightning as the light in his sword illuminated the sky. The two of them collided and a great battle erupted. Chapter 1286. Zhao Shinkong's figure was like a white dragon, his spear thrusting with lightning. Yi Guchen's steps were like a swan leaping through the air, his sword glinting. Both of them were peak prodigies of the dynasty, capable of contending against overlord-level prodigies. At this moment, sword and spear clashed, erupting into a great battle. White Dragon Strangulation. Zhao Shinkong thrusted out his Daoyuo golden spear with one hand. Boundless air currents surged, wrapping around the tip of the spear, as if they could even tear apart the surrounding void. 9-colored lightning surged within Yi Guchen's body. With a dragon's roar, the soul of the Thunder Dragon emerged from the 9-dragon lightning prison sword. Myriad transformations lightning. The sword radiance blazed and lightning flashed as it clashed with Zhao Shinkong's spear. Clang. The sound was like metal, shaking the void. Zhao Shinkong took advantage of the situation. With a shake of his spear, an unparalleled force erupted. In terms of strength, the spear was naturally more powerful than the sword. Moreover, the longer it was, the stronger it was. Zhao Shinkong pushed the advantage of the Daoyuo golden spear to its limits. The strength of each spear strike was enough to shatter a small mountain. As expected of the number 1 on the War God Dynasty's War God list, Yi Guchen muttered to himself as he fought. Zhao Weihuang's previous strength was already considered decent. However, Zhao Shinkong's strength was a level higher than Zhao Weihuang's. It was no wonder that he had been able to suppress Zhao Weihuang. However, Yi Guchen was no pushover. He was only warming up. Heavenly Thunder Summoning. Yi Guchen swung his sword again. Blazing lightning spread out, following Yi Guchen's sword toward Zhao Shinkong. Zhao Shinkong spun his spear, the Daoyuo golden spear in his hand. As it spun, it seemed to transform into an airtight shield, completely blocking the power of Yi Guchen's sword move. Then, Zhao Shinkong used another movement technique. His body spun left and right, as vigorous as a soaring dragon. 9 revolutions soaring dragon step. This was one of Zhao Shinkong's emperor-level movement techniques. It was profound and unfathomable. In an instant, he appeared in front of Yi Guchen, and thrust his spear at Yi Guchen's chest. Yi Guchen also used the divine movement secret technique. His legs were wrapped in lightning, and it was as if he was walking on lightning. He dodged Zhao Shinkong's attack with extreme speed. What a fast movement technique! Zhao Shinkong was slightly surprised. His 9 revolving soaring dragon steps was already a pretty good movement technique. However, Yi Guchen's speed was a little too fast. However, how could he know that what Yi Guchen used was not a movement technique, but one of the top 10 ancient secret techniques, the divine movement secret technique? In terms of speed alone, ordinary emperor-level movement techniques were no match for the divine movement secret skill. Even Yi Guchen's divine movement secret art had only reached the first level, chasing lightning. In terms of speed, Yi Guchen surpassed Zhao Shinkong. He also grasped this advantage, and used an endless stream of sword moves to drown Zhao Shinkong. Immortal God Weep. Divine Annihilation Heavenly Punishment. Yi Guchen used one sword move after another, its power even greater than before. Zhao Shinkong's body was momentarily restricted, and he was forced into a passive position. That's it. The surrounding prodigies couldn't help but discuss. However, many people still believed that Zhao Shinkong hadn't used any tricks, and that this was just a warm-up. Only Zhao Xiaodi was worried the entire time, and didn't think too highly of her elder brother. I hope that when the time comes, Dugu Wubai won't go too far, Zhao Xiaodi prayed in her heart. As expected of the Jiankui, who can kill an overlord-level prodigy, this strength is indeed not bad. Even though he was being suppressed, Zhao Shinkong still smiled. This showed that he had a good battle mentality and was able to withstand the pressure. However, if that's all, you're still far from being able to defeat me. As soon as Zhao Shinkong finished speaking, his true chi burst forth, faintly condensing into the shape of a white dragon. Move the spear, White Dragon's Roar. Zhao Shinkong stomped his feet on the ground, and the powerful force caused the surrounding ground to cave in, spreading cracks. He raised his spear horizontally, and the image of the white dragon soared up along with the tip of his spear. It was as if a dragon was roaring in the 9 heavens, and the fluctuations were extremely shocking. Are you finally getting serious? This is getting interesting. Yi Guchen smiled faintly when he saw this. He was extremely calm. Third ultimate holy sword, universal extermination. Yi Guchen consecutively slashed out with the absolute sword of Qianyang and the absolute sword of Kuan-Yu. The two sword moves merged in the air, transforming into an attack that could split the heavens and destroy the earth. Fiercely colliding with Zhao Shinkong's explosive move, a deafening sound reverberated in all directions. The surrounding ground collapsed and cracks spread. Dao Comprehension Mountain shook slightly. This kind of fluctuation was frightening to look at. One had to know that the battle hadn't been going on for long. Both sides hadn't completely used their trump cards, but the momentum was already so shocking. It was hard to imagine how intense the battle would be later. Who do you think will win this battle? Dao Wuming suddenly asked with some interest. Wanner blinked her watery eyes and said, "It should be Zhao Shinkong, the little war god of the War God dynasty. His fame in the South Horizon region is no less than that of overlord forces like us." What do you think, Fairy Tsangyue? Dao Wuming turned to look at Yi Tsangyue. Yi Tsangyue pursed her lips and said, "It might be Jiankui." Oh. Dao Wuming was slightly surprised. He didn't expect Yi Tsangyue to think highly of Yi Guchen. "Haha, Sister Tsangyue, if you just want to argue with me, there's no need to choose Jiankui, right?" Wanner smiled, thinking that Yi Tsangyue simply didn't want to choose the same person as her. "I also think it might be Jiankui." Gu Zun suddenly spoke up. Dao Wuming was even more surprised. Gu Zun was eccentric and didn't care about anyone. It was rare for him to take the initiative to speak up and think highly of someone. Why? Is it familiar? Gu Zun muttered to himself. Looking at the ghost-faced sword chieftain, Gu Zun found his every move somewhat familiar. He thought of an old enemy. However, it was impossible for him to still be alive, so Gu Zun instinctively eliminated that option, just as the surrounding geniuses were guessing the outcome of the battle. As time passed, the battle between Zhao Shinkong and Yi Guchen became more and more intense. Overlord Spear Technique, Overlord Roar. Zhao Shinkong used another spear technique. He seemed to be possessed by an ancient overlord, his spear surging with power. 8 Extremities Reincarnation Sword Technique, Fire Extremity. Yi Guchen also made a move. It was like a needle against an awl. Overlord Spear Technique, Raging Annihilation. Zhao Shinkong's spear swept out, sending out rings of true qi that seemed capable of destroying everything. 8 Extremities Reincarnation Sword Technique, Lightning Extremity. 9-colored lightning surged in Yi Guchen's body, bolstered by the power of the lightning sword Dao. In an instant, lightning filled the sky and sword radiance tore apart Zhao Shinkong's attack. At the same time, Yi Guchen formed a seal with his left hand. Ancient god power surged out, forming a golden seal that crushed down on Zhao Shinkong. It was the ancient god king seal. Zhao Shinkong couldn't help but admire Yi Guchen's ability to grasp the situation, but he didn't just sit around. His left hand clenched into a fist, his true qi condensing into a fist. His true qi condensed into the image of a roaring dragon. White dragon sky-shaking fist. Spear and sword radiance clashed. Fist wind and ancient seal collided. Neither of them was willing to back down. The battle reached its climax. Chapter 1287. Rumble. Countless booms resounded in all directions. Zhao Shinkong's fist wind was like a dragon, traversing space. His true qi seemed to transform into the image of a white dragon. And Yi Guchen's ancient divine royal seal was like a golden mountain pressing down. The dragon image and the ancient seal collided, and a violent reverberation rang out in everyone's ears. This reverberation caused many geniuses to turn pale. They asked themselves if they were in Zhao Shinkong's shoes, they wouldn't be able to last more than a few minutes in a battle of this level. They would be instantly killed. Yi Guchen was shaken by the recoil force, and was forced to take a dozen steps back. Then he used the divine movement secret skill again and rushed forward. Zhao Shinkong's body trembled. The platinum dragon-patterned armor on his body also faintly glowed. Its surface was covered in dense patterns that resembled dragon scales. When the shockwave landed on Zhao Shinkong's armor, the dragon scales began to tremble slightly, weakening the shockwave to the extreme. As the number 1 on the War God Dynasty's War God list, and the son of the Heaven War Emperor, Zhao Shinkong's equipment was naturally the strongest. The Zenith Heaven Golden Spear and Platinum Dragon-patterned armor were both 10th Tribulation divine weapons. Overlord Spear Art, uprooting mountains and rivers. Zhao Shinkong first stabbed his spear into the ground, the tip of the spear piercing deeply into the earth. Then he suddenly raised his spear, causing cracks to spread out. Finally, under everyone's shocked gazes, a large piece of earth was separated, as if a mountain had been dug out and thrown at Yi Guqin. Seeing this, Yi Guqin also used a corresponding move to neutralize it. 8 Extremities Reincarnation Sword Art, Mountain's Peak. A Gen trigram appeared in the air. Yi Guqin pierced through it with his sword, and a dense sword image spread out, as heavy as a mountain. Boom! Yi Guqin's heavy sword fell, shattering the piece of dirt that was flying towards him. His figure flashed, and he landed in front of Zhao Shinkong. Then Yi Guqin flicked his finger, and a dozen drops of liquid shot out from his fingertip. These seemingly ordinary drops of water made Zhao Shinkong's eyes focus. That's Mystic Origin Heavy Water. Zhao Shinkong was no fool. Yi Guqin had already used this move to kill one of the 4 Star Lords in the past. Hence, the news that Yi Guqin possessed the Mystic Origin Heavy Water was also known by outsiders. Zhao Shinkong naturally knew as well, but he still couldn't defend himself. This was because Yi Guqin's speed was too fast. The instant he broke through Zhao Shinkong's move, he immediately used the Divine Movement secret technique to move in front of him. Boom, 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 boom. A dozen drops of Mystic Origin Heavy Water smashed onto Zhao Shinkong's body. Although he was wearing a platinum dragon-patterned armor, he still felt as if he had been hit by a dozen mountains. The dragon scales on the surface of the dragon-patterned battle armor trembled, but they still couldn't completely eliminate the power of the vibration. Puchi! Zhao Shinkong retreated several dozen meters. His chest trembled as he spat out blood. Zhao Shinkong is injured. Some of the geniuses exclaimed. They hadn't expected this to happen. He's just relying on the Mystic Origin Heavy Water. What kind of ability is that? Some of the geniuses who disliked Yi Guqin secretly scoffed. That's where you're wrong. This is someone else's technique and ability, so why can't he use it? Even if I say that Zhao Shinkong is wearing a tribulation weapon armor, that's still not his ability. Some of the geniuses who supported Yi Guqin retorted. These words left the geniuses speechless. However, this was reality. As long as one could defeat their opponent, any technique could be used. Zhao Shinkong wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand, his face solemn. A good technique, but it's still not enough. Tyrant Spear Art, Tyrant's Everlasting. Zhao Shinkong gripped the Daluo golden spear with both hands and stabbed it into the ground. Terrifying true energy erupted, condensing into stellar energy. Vaguely, the figure of an overlord seemed to appear behind Zhao Shinkong. His aura climbed steadily, so powerful that it made people tremble. Kill. Zhao Shinkong raised his spear, moving with extreme speed. A cold light first arrived, and then the spear shot out like a dragon. Yi Guqin first sensed a spear light appear in front of him, and then Zhao Shinkong's figure appeared. What speed? It's more than twice as fast as before. Yi Guqin's expression turned grave. He took a step forward, causing thunder and lightning to rumble. His body turned into an afterimage, and at the same time, he activated the power of the 9-dragon lightning prison sword in his hand. 4 thunder dragon souls appeared at the same time, roaring toward Zhao Shinkong. Tyrant Roar. Zhao Shinkong's spear trembled, and the 4 powerful thunder dragon souls were actually shaken away at the same time. Immovable King Armor of the Ancient God. Yi Guqin immediately activated his Ancient God power and formed the Immovable King Armor of the Ancient God. Golden light flowed over his body as the resplendent Immovable King Armor of the Ancient God appeared. Boom! Zhao Shinkong's spear struck Yi Guqin's body, and the Immovable King Armor of the Ancient God violently trembled as cracks began to spread. Yi Guchen also let out a muffled groan as he felt the blood in his chest churning. After Zhao Shenkong added the power of the Overlord, every spear strike was filled with power, as if it could shatter the heavens. Zhao Shenkong is indeed strong. He managed to turn the situation around. Many people were discussing. That's not necessarily true. That Jiankui's body is abnormally strong. Even when Zhang Sun Aojue pierced through his shoulder, he was still fine. Zhao Shenkong's strike might not even be able to injure Jiankui. Some people shook their heads. Yi Guchen's freakishly strong physical body left a deep impression on everyone. In comparison, although Zhao Shenkong's body was not weak, it was clearly incomparable to Yi Guchen's. Interesting, but can you take this move? Seeing this, Yi Guchen's lips curled into a smile. He pointed his sword to the sky and his other hand to the ground, and a burst of sword chi burst forth. Heaven as Qian, earth as Kuan. Heaven and earth chi holy sword. Yi Guchen seemed to have gathered all the power of heaven and earth together. 100-meter-long golden sword light soared through the sky, carrying an aura that seemed to be able to cut through the heavens. It was terrifying. This was the ultimate technique of the Seventh Sword Sect, the Heaven and Earth Chi Holy Sword. What kind of move is that? It's actually so powerful. Many geniuses watched with trembling eyes. Every move of Yi Guchen felt like a trump card. Facing Yi Guchen's trump card, Zhao Shenkong had no choice but to go all out. 7 styles of the dragon battle, hidden dragon in the abyss. Zhao Shenkong gathered his strength, and the true qi in his body churned as he used his second move. 7 styles of the dragon battle, seeing the dragon in the field. The spear struck the 100-meter-long sword light, but it was easily broken through. Seeing this, Zhao Shenkong used a series of powerful moves. 7 styles of the dragon battle, fighting dragon in the field. 7 styles of the dragon battle, flying dragon in the sky. Zhao Shenkong unleashed all his cultivation and soared into the air. Several powerful moves overlapped, and the fluctuations were so powerful that it was shocking. But this was not the end. Zhao Shenkong continued to stack his attacks. 7 styles of the dragon battle, soaring dragon roars to the world. 7 styles of the dragon battle, divine dragon swings its tail. Final style of the dragon battle, dragon blood mystic yellow. The power of Zhao Shenkong's 7 styles overlapped, and the quantitative change caused a qualitative change. The surrounding void exploded, and the zenith luo golden spear trembled violently, as if it was about to fly out of his hands. Kill. Zhao Shenkong's 7 styles overlapped, and his spear blasted out, fiercely colliding with Yi Guchen's Heaven and Earth Chi Holy Sword. For a moment, the heavens and earth cracked, and the surroundings shook. Chapter 1288. The 7 forms of the battle dragon was one of Zhao Shenkong's ultimate moves. Normally, he could easily kill ordinary divine dwelling stage heaven prides with just one move. And at that moment, all 7 styles were used at the same time. Moreover, their power was even superimposed. One could very well imagine the power they possessed. It could be said to be world-shaking. Yi Guchen's means were also superb. After all, none of the unique skills of the sword sect were weak. The power of the unifying universe sacred sword was similarly powerful. The collision of the 2 moves was like a meteor collision, shaking the universe. A ring-shaped wave of chi surged out in all directions from the center of the collision. The surrounding heaven prides hurriedly retreated, afraid of being caught in the crossfire. Smoke and dust rose in all directions, and rubble flew through the air. Dao Wuming, Guzun, Yitsongyue, Waner Dugu Chioemo, Princess Luoho and the others were all watching the center of the battle. Cough cough. The sound of coughing blood was heard as a figure continuously retreated from the dust. Everyone focused their gazes on the figure. It was Zhao Shenkong. The hand holding the spear was trembling, and the web between his thumb and forefinger was torn. Blood flowed along the body of the spear, gathering at the tip and dripping down. He stared intently into the depths of the dust, his eyes cold and fierce. Big brother. Zhao Xiaodi cried out in alarm, her delicate face turning incomparably pale. She was afraid that Zhao Shenkong would end up like Zhao Weihuang. Everyone's gazes also turned to the other side. As the dust settled, Yi Guqin's figure was revealed to everyone. Compared to Zhao Shinkong's injuries, Yi Guqin was clearly much better. Although the immovable king armor on his body was cracked, his aura was still as powerful as before. It was clear at a glance who had the upper hand in this clash. Jian Kuei has the upper hand? Interesting, Jian Kuei's strength seems to have become even more unfathomable after Dao Comprehension Mountain. Witch Wanner's charming face revealed a look of surprise. She did not expect such a situation. After all, she had guessed that Zhao Shinkong would have the upper hand. She did not expect the result to be like this. His strength is really very strong. But what exactly is that throbbing feeling in my heart? Yi Songyue's beautiful eyes revealed a strange light as she muttered in her heart. She was shocked by Yi Guqin's strength, but she was even more confused as to why she would have such a feeling towards Yi Guqin. Apart from Yi Songyue, Guzun also felt the same way. If there's a chance in the future, I must take off his mask and find out what's going on. Guzun muttered to himself. In the center of the battlefield, Zhao Shinkong panted as he stared at Yi Guqin. Jian Kuei, just how deep have you hidden your strength? Zhao Shinkong's voice was bitter as his confidence was shaken. It wasn't that he wasn't strong enough, but that Yi Guqin had hidden his strength too well. Furthermore, Zhao Shinkong had a premonition that even at this point in the battle, Yi Guqin had not displayed his full strength. He still had some leeway. This was what Zhao Shinkong feared the most. Just do your best. I also want to know where my limits are, Yi Guqin indifferently said. If Yi Guqin had said such words before the battle, he would have been ridiculed by a group of people. They would have said that he was overestimating himself. But now, Yi Guqin had proven that he had the confidence and qualifications to say such words. Fine. I, Zhao Shinkong, will not admit defeat until the very end. Zhao Shinkong roared as he attacked once more. 6 Coiling Dragon Arts, Coiling Dragon Strangulation. Zhao Shinkong attacked with his spear once more, creating countless afterimages that intersected and strangled the air. Yi Guqin once more struck out with his sword, using the 8 extremities Samsara sword art. Sword chi crisscrossed as he clashed with Zhao Shinkong. The battle began once more, but this time, the crowd was clearly not optimistic about Zhao Shinkong's chances. Yi Guqin activated the power of the leakless divine palace. 10 times the amount of Zhen Qi gushed out, and supported the 9 Dragon Thunder prison, causing the power of the 9 Dragon Thunder prison to surge once again. Lightning filled the sky and the sword radiance shone brightly. Even the layers of clouds were shattered. 6 Coiling Dragon Arts, True Dragon shatters the heavens. Zhao Shinkong turned around, and threw out the great Luo Golden Spear. A dragon-shaped phantom accompanied the tip of the spear as it charged at Yi Guqin. Upon seeing this, Yi Guqin raised a hand, his true chi vibrating as lightning flashed. Heaven's Punishment Lightning Prison. A blazing ball of lightning soared from his hand, spreading out into countless lightning shackles that sealed the space, turning the surroundings into a lightning purgatory. This lightning purgatory directly sealed Zhao Shinkong's move and destroyed it. Zhao Shinkong used the 9 revolutions soaring dragon steps and broke through the lightning purgatory. He gripped the great Luo Golden Spear once more and struck out. 6 Coiling Dragon Arts, Black Dragon howls at the moon. He raised his spear, and a black dragon image surged out, charging at the lightning purgatory. With a loud boom, a hole was torn open in the Heaven's Punishment Lightning Prison. Yi Guqin was in no hurry, calmly dealing with it. God Annihilation, Heavenly Punishment. The 9 Dragon Thunder prison drew in lightning, combining it with the power of the Heaven's Punishment Lightning Prison to stab at Zhao Shinkong. The tip of the sword and the spear collided, and true chi exploded in the air. Yi Guqin activated the power of the leakless divine abode. 10 times his true chi surged out, increasing its power. Although Zhao Shinkong's move was not weak, he was still at a disadvantage in terms of divine abode. A recoil struck his body, causing him to smash into the ground like a cannonball. Spiderweb-like cracks spread out, filling the air with dust. Yi Guqin also retreated 10 some steps. His body trembled as he dispelled this force. Is Zhao Shinkong completely defeated? The surrounding geniuses whispered to each other as they looked at the dust-filled crater. Big brother, don't. Zhao Xiaodi blushed. Her face drained of all color. She had long wanted to stop Zhao Shinkong, but Zhao Shinkong was too stubborn. Boom! Just as everyone was trying to figure out what was going on, Zhao Shinkong's figure burst out from the dust and charged towards Yi Guqin like an arrow released from a bow. 6 Coiling Dragon Arts, Blood Dragon Revolution. The Zenluo golden spear spun around, the image of a blood-colored dragon spreading out. This move was too sudden. If it were any other genius, they probably would not have been able to react in time. But Yi Guqin's battle instincts were extremely powerful. In battle, he could not relax in the slightest. Thus, when Zhao Shinkong attacked, Yi Guqin immediately reacted. 3rd Ultimate Sage Sword, Cosmic Annihilation. The Qianyang Absolute Sword and Kuan-Yu Absolute Sword merged into a blazing sword beam that crashed toward Zhao Shinkong. Boom! 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 Zhao Shinkong seemed to awaken as a war god, entering a berserk state. Right now, he was not thinking about taking revenge for Zhao Weihuang. He simply wanted to defeat Yi Guqin and prove his martial path. Heavenly Dragon Spear Art of the Great Sorrow. Zhao Shinkong's body exploded with blood as he squeezed out his blood qi and pushed his divine dwellings to their limits. His spear pierced forward, emitting a heaven-shaking dragon roar. It was like a great heavenly dragon had descended to the world, sweeping through everything. 3rd Ultimate Fusion, Moon-Falling Star-Sinking Vast Young Cleave. In the face of such a powerful move, Yi Guqin did not dare to hold back. He directly used the ultimate killing move of the 3rd Ultimate Sage Sword. The 3 ultimate sword moves simultaneously transformed into a dazzling sword beam. The two collided like Mars crashing into Earth. Boom! A mushroom cloud rose up as Yi Guqin was blasted back, the immovable king armor on his body also shattering. On the other hand, Zhao Shinkong was once more smashed into the ground. His body was covered in dust and blood, making him look even more miserable. There was no doubt who had the upper hand in this exchange. Enough, it's enough. Big brother, stop. Zhao Xiaodi could not help but sob. She was very afraid. If the battle continued, Zhao Shinkong might end up like Zhao Weihuang. No. I can't accept this. I still have one more move. Zhao Shinkong's eyes were blood red. He suddenly raised his head and stared straight at Yi Guqin. Jiankui, I still have one last move. If you can take it, I'm willing to stretch out my neck and let you kill me. Zhao Shinkong's hair fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were blood red. He seemed rather solemn and stirring. Oh, come then. A sliver of curiosity appeared in Yi Guqin's eyes. Zhao Shinkong gripped his spear with both hands, the tyrannical true energy in his body bursting out. His skin was faintly cracking as blood seeped out, dyeing the platinum dragon-patterned armor red. Universe Spear Reversal, Shattering Strike. Zhao Shinkong stomped on the ground and soared into the air. The surrounding spirit qi seemed to converge on the tip of Zhao Shinkong's spear. This strike shocked the heavens and the earth, and the surroundings were overwhelmed with shock. Chapter 1289. Zhao Shinkong's ripples were simply too shocking. The tip of his spear seemed to carry the power of heaven and earth. Zhao Shinkong seemed to be the center of the universe, with all the spiritual qi converging towards him. The light on his Daoyuo golden spear blazed even brighter. It was so powerful that even Zhao Shinkong found it hard to control it. The Daoyuo golden spear buzzed as if it wanted to fly out of his hand. Jiankui, if you can take this move, I, Zhao Shinkong, will concede defeat. Zhao Shinkong said. This meant that he was extremely confident in this move. As for the surrounding sky prides, their eyes were filled with shock. The ripples from this move were too powerful, as if it could really shatter the universe. As expected of the War God Empire's little war god. Interesting. It will be very difficult for Jiankui to take this move, Dao Wuming commented. I'm very curious. How will Jiankui take this move? Wanner's beautiful eyes sparkled with curiosity. Yi Songyue, on the other hand, remained silent and observed the situation of the battle. For some reason, Yi Songyue instinctively paid attention to Yi Guqin. She even secretly hoped that nothing would happen to him. What's wrong with me? Why would I have such thoughts? I've never met Jiankui before. We're complete strangers. Yi Songyue felt inexplicably vexed when she sensed her thoughts. At this moment, all the surrounding geniuses were glued to the scene. Zhao Shinkong's trump card had shocked many people. Meanwhile, Yi Guchen was still calmly standing in the air. Interesting. Let's decide this in one move. Yi Guchen no longer held back and used his strongest move. Runes and trigrams formed in the air. Seeing this, many geniuses were puzzled. Why is it still the same move? It's definitely impossible to block Zhao Shinkong's move. Many people were puzzled because Yi Guchen was still using the same move he had used before. Although the 8 extremities samsara sword technique was not weak in the eyes of outsiders, it was clearly unable to deal with Zhao Shinkong's powerful move. Zhao Shinkong also frowned. Jiankui, are you looking down on me? In response to Zhao Shinkong's words, Yi Guchen faintly smiled and said nothing. Then the second hexagram appeared. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth. In the end, the 8 trigrams appeared in the void around Yi Guchen. Instantly, a terrifying wave of sword chi that caused the heavens and the earth to tremble spread out. This move. All the surrounding heavens' favorites were horrified and felt their hair stand on end. What a miraculous move. Each move alone is not weak. When the 8 moves are combined, the power is multiplied several times. Dao Wuming's eyes shone with a strange light. In the past, Yi Guchen had never been able to manifest 8 rune hexagrams in the void at the same time. But now, after comprehending the Dao Comprehension Mountain, Yi Guchen could finally display the ultimate move of the 8 extremities samsara sword technique. 8 extremities samsara, heaven and earth annihilation. Yi Guchen swung his sword, shattering the 8 rune hexagrams at the same time. Then 8 different types of sword chi rushed out. The 8 terrifying sword chi merged in the void, forming a wheel of sword chi that seemed to be able to obliterate the world. The wheel of sword chi cut through the void, crashing towards Zhao Shinkong. Although this attack was not as powerful as the one proud divine continent had displayed, it was still an absolute victory move in the divine dwelling stage. Annihilation strike. Zhao Shinkong had also finished accumulating power. The tip of his spear swept down, causing the spiritual chi of the world to tremble as it fell. Boom. Zhao Shinkong's spear collided with the wheel of sword chi. Endless rays of light spread out, dazzling and blinding, almost blinding the eyes of all the heavens' favorites. Berserk sword chi rampaged in all directions and the air vibrated. Some of the weaker heavens' favorites were even sent flying into the distance. The ground cracked open, Dao Comprehension Mountain shook, and everyone's eyes widened in horror. Is this a battle of the divine dwelling stage? Why do I feel like 2 sovereigns are attacking each other? Many heavens' favorites felt a lingering fear. The battle fluctuations were too shocking. But compared to this, the result was even more curious. Dust filled the air, and gravel rustled down from the sky. In such a scene, a figure half kneeling on the ground entered everyone's eyes. Dao Wuming, Guzun, Wan'er Tsungyue, Princess Luo Ho and the others also looked over. The figure was indeed Zhao Shinkong. He held the great Luo golden spear in his hand, half kneeling on the ground. The platinum dragon-patterned armor on his body was already covered in cracks. His body was covered in blood, and even his chin was dripping blood. His hair was disheveled, and he was completely different from the high-spirited and heroic little war god from before. However, everyone was more concerned about another person. At this moment, the sound of footsteps was heard. Everyone suddenly looked over. A ghost mask slowly emerged from the smoke and dust. It was Yi Guchen, slowly walking out with a sword in his hand. His black robe was in tatters, and blood dripped from under his mask. But compared to Zhao Shinkong, he was clearly in a much better state. The result has been decided. The little war god of the war god empire has lost. Seeing this result, everyone knew that the outcome had been decided. Jiankui really won. Wan'er was surprised. She couldn't believe there were times when she had misjudged. Guzun and Tsungyue weren't surprised because they thought that Yi Guchen had a high chance of winning. As for Princess Luo Ho, she bit her bright red lips with her pearly white teeth. Now that she had seen Yi Guchen's strength, she was also a little nervous. But she turned to look at Dugu Qioma, whose charming and indifferent face hadn't changed in the slightest from beginning to end. It doesn't matter, I still have Qioma. And from the looks of it, he doesn't seem to be too afraid of Jiankui. With someone to rely on, Princess Luoho's nervous heart calmed down. On the other side, Yi Guchen looked at the half-kneeling Zhao Shenkong and asked, "Do you have anything else to say?" Zhao Shenkong coughed twice and smiled miserably. "What else can I say? I said before that if I lose, I'll stretch out my neck and be executed." Zhao Shenkong didn't beg Yi Guchen to spare his life. Instead, he calmly chose death. "Very well then." Yi Guchen slowly raised the nine-dragon lightning prison in his hand. At this moment, a petite figure suddenly pounced in front of Yi Guchen and grabbed his wrist that was holding the sword with her jade-like hand. "I beg you, Dugawu Bai, don't kill my big brother, please." The newcomer was Zhao Xiaodi. Her face was as fair as carved jade, her almond-shaped eyes flashing with tears. Her face was pale as she begged. "Xiaodi knows that Xiaodi has no room to beg, but I still hope that you can spare big brother's life," Zhao Xiaodi pleaded. Yi Guchen indifferently glanced at Zhao Xiaodi. He had traveled with Zhao Xiaodi in the Sacred Dynasty's treasury and could be considered friends. But that was all. "Little sister, shut up. You don't need to beg. This is big brother's life." Zhao Shenkong barked. "Dugawu Bai, as long as you're willing to spare big brother, Xiaodi will be your personal maid and serve you every day." Zhao Xiaodi bit her lip and spoke shocking words. Chapter 1290. Many of the surrounding sky prides were stunned when they heard this. Make the little princess of the war god dynasty a maid? This kind of treatment was not something that anyone could enjoy. Many of the geniuses sized up Zhao Xiaodi. Her face was exquisite, her jet-black hair tied into two ponytails, and her eyes were bright and clear. At this moment, her tear-stained appearance was even more pitiful. Although she was only a 13-year-old girl, she was already beginning to show her beauty. Any other genius might have softened their hearts and directly agreed. However, the people present did not think that Jian Kuei would change his mind because of Zhao Xiaodi's actions. Because of his character, many people knew that he would not be swayed by other things at all. Yi Guchen pushed Zhao Xiaodi away with one hand. Zhao Xiaodi paled, her eyes brimming with tears. She had not expected Yi Guchen to be so decisive. Zhao Shenkong was not disappointed by this scene, because he had already mentally prepared himself. Yi Guchen's sword trembled as it stabbed toward Zhao Shenkong's neck. Zhao Xiaodi tightly shut her eyes, not daring to watch this scene. Everyone else was watching intently. Zhao Xiaodi's eyes were tightly shut as she heard the cries of alarm from the surroundings. Was he dead? Was her big brother dead? Zhao Xiaodi's heart clenched in fear as she struggled to open her eyes. Then her gaze froze. The sword in Yi Guchen's hand was pressed against Zhao Shenkong's neck. Zhao Shenkong clenched his teeth. Even at the moment of death, he did not close his eyes. The cries of alarm were not because Yi Guchen had attacked, but because he had not immediately killed Zhao Shenkong. This made everyone feel incredulous. What do you mean by this? If you just want to laugh at me and humiliate me, there's no need for that. There was no joy on Zhao Shenkong's face. Instead, his expression was very cold, because he believed that Yi Guchen was deliberately humiliating him. However, what happened next stunned Zhao Shenkong. "You're a man." Yi Guchen put away the long sword in his hand and turned around. You're not going to kill me?" Zhao Shenkong's resolute face revealed a rare hint of astonishment, because he couldn't understand. If it were him, Zhao Shenkong might have really attacked. "You should be thankful that I admire your character. If you were someone like Zhao Weihuang or Zhang Sun Aojue, you would already be a corpse by now," Yi Guchen said calmly. Although they were opponents, there were many types of opponents. For example, people like Gu Xiaoyang, Huang Qianqiu, and Di Haotian were people that Yi Guchen had to kill. As for Zhao Shenkong and Gu Zun, Yi Guchen felt that there was no need to kill them. Even Yi Guchen, the enemy, admired Xian Hao's persistence in swordsmanship. In Yi Guchen's bones, there was still a sense of chivalry. He would never show mercy to those who deserved to die. He also didn't mind showing mercy to those he admired. Ha ha ha, I didn't think that Zhao Shenkong, would one day admit defeat. Zhao Shenkong suddenly threw his head back and laughed. He looked at Yi Guchen and said, "I, Zhao Shenkong, have never submitted to anyone in my life, not even to the geniuses of overlord factions. They might be able to defeat me, but they won't be able to accept me wholeheartedly. But Jiankui, when it comes to you, I truly submit. Perhaps this was the temperament of a true expert. All rivers run into the sea. Tolerance is greatness. Benevolence is benevolence. Killing is killing. Yi Guchen nodded and said nothing. From now on I Zhao Shinkong owe you my life. Zhao Shinkong said. If they could live, no one would want to die. Zhao Shinkong was indeed unafraid of death, but he didn't have to ask for it. Wonderful. Zhao Xiaodi wiped away her tears, helped Zhao Shinkong up, and said to Yi Guchen, Dugawu Bai no. Master, from now on, you are Xiaodi's master. There's no need. This has nothing to do with you. Yi Guchen shook his head. Zhao Xiaodi's presence or absence would not change his mind. This is a promise that I Zhao Xiaodi made. It also has nothing to do with you. Zhao Xiaodi put her hands on her hips and puffed out her not-so-full chest. Yi Guchen was somewhat speechless. Did he just get himself into trouble? Many of the Sky Prides were surprised to see such a dramatic outcome. However, there was admiration in their eyes. After all, sparing his enemy's life was enough to show Yi Guchen's magnanimity. But there were also people who believed that Yi Guchen's actions were a sure win. Killing Zhao Shinkong would not benefit Yi Guchen much. But sparing his life would instead make Zhao Shinkong owe Yi Guchen a huge favor. No matter how one looked at it, Yi Guchen had profited. TSK, what a chivalrous hero. Wanner clicked her tongue. She was a member of the demonic sect and was rather displeased with Yi Guchen's actions. Do you think that everyone in the world is as cold and heartless as your demonic sect? Yi Tsungyue retorted. Yi Guchen's actions made Yi Tsungyue have a better impression of him. Oh, Sister Fairy is moved. Didn't you just chat with the Demon King? Why are you interested in Jiankui now? Wanner giggled. Yi Tsungyue's clear eyes revealed some anger. In terms of eloquence, she could never beat Wanner. On the other side, Duguqioma did not say anything. If it were him, Zhao Shinkong would probably have lost his life. However, this was Yi Guchen's choice, so Duguqioma would not say anything. Now that Zhang Sun Aojue had died and Zhao Shinkong had surrendered, there was only one person left. Almost everyone's gazes landed on Duguqioma. The only one who hasn't fought Jiankui right now is Duguqioma, right? Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing who's stronger between the two of them very much. They'll probably fight. After all, Princess Luoho has clashed with Jiankui in the past. She probably won't let go of this opportunity for revenge. Many people looked at Yi Guchen before looking at Duguqioma. They were all interested. Out of the 4 prodigies, only the 2 of them had yet to fight. One of them had killed 2 of the 4-star lords, while the other had directly suppressed Chen Qingxiao. They were both vicious people. If the 2 of them fought, just what would it be like? Princess Luoho took a step forward and looked at Yi Guchen coldly. She said, Jiankui, you killed a prodigy of my Mola Empire right in front of me in the Imperial Treasury. I, Princess Luoho, will make you pay for this today. If it were just Princess Luoho, she would naturally fear him and not dare to provoke him recklessly. However, Duguqioma was by her side right now. Princess Luoho had a kind of blind trust in Duguqioma. It was as if as long as he was present, all problems could be resolved. So, Yi Guchen turned his head slightly and looked at Princess Luoho with interest. Qioma. Princess Luoho looked at Duguqioma. She, who had always been cold, seemed to have become a little woman as she begged coquettishly. Heh. Duguqioma sneered evilly. He naturally did not care about Princess Luoho's request. However, Duguqioma was more than willing to spar with his main body. Come. Duguqioma took a step forward. His white hair danced wildly, and his demonic eyes were captivating. The powerful aura of a 5th firmament divine dwelling surged out. Coupled with the power of the leakless divine dwelling, Duguqioma was like a demon king who had come out of seclusion, intimidating everyone. Duguqioma is finally going to make a move. The surrounding prodigies were shocked, and their eyes lit up. Princess Luoho was overjoyed. She looked at Yi Guchen as if she was looking at a dead man. Jiankui, you're dead meat. Heh. Yi Guchen muttered to himself as he looked at Duguqioma. Let me measure how much you've grown during this period of time. Yi Guchen's sword chi burst forth like a sword immortal. His main body and clone were finally going to fight. Chapter 1291. Yi Guchen's face was covered by a ghost mask, his black hair fluttering in the wind. He held the 9-dragon lightning prison in his hand, and his slender figure resembled an ancient sword immortal. Duguqioma's white hair fluttered in the wind, his dark golden demonic eyes deep and mysterious. He raised one hand, and the God Devourer sword wrapped in black crystals appeared in a flash. At this moment, both of their auras burst out. Although Yi Guchen knew everything about Duguqioma, he still wanted to know how strong Duguqioma was. He also wanted to use this exchange to measure his own strength. In the eyes of outsiders, this was Duguqioma standing up for Princess Luo Ho. But in reality, it was Yi Guchen's real body sparring with his doppelganger. Come! Yi Guchen was the first to make a move. He blasted out the Universe Annihilation move, sword light flashing and imposing. Duguqioma stretched out one hand. Demonic chi wildly surged, and his aura was like that of a demon king. Yuan devouring explosion. Terrifying demonic chi exploded like the shattering of a great star. The two figures collided like meteors. Yi Guchen's sword vibrated, and he stabbed at Duguqioma. Duguqioma blocked with his sword. The aura of the 5th layer of the divine dwelling realm gushed out, faintly suppressing Yi Guchen. But because both of them were at the leakless divine dwelling, the difference between them was only 1 layer. Duguqioma is so strong. Jiankui is rumored to have cultivated the leakless divine dwelling, but I didn't expect him to be unable to suppress Duguqioma. Looking at the two of them fighting fiercely, many sky prides exclaimed in shock. In previous battles, Yi Guchen had never been weak in terms of divine dwelling chi. Even when facing opponents who were at a higher cultivation level than him, he could still crush them. This was because the quality of Yi Guchen's divine dwelling was far better than other heaven prides. But now, Yi Guchen couldn't rely on his divine dwelling true chi to suppress Duguqioma. This was because Duguqioma had also cultivated the leakless divine palace, and it was a special Azura divine palace. In terms of cultivation level, he was 1 level higher than Yi Guchen. Therefore, the two of them were almost evenly matched in terms of divine dwelling true chi. Duguqioemo, let me see your true strength. Yi Guchen's lips curled into a smile. The stronger Duga's quenching devil was, the more beneficial it would be for him. If he had the chance to fuse with it in the future, Yi Guchen's strength would naturally increase as well. Therefore, the more amazing Duga's performance was, the happier Yi Guchen was. This meant that his efforts were not in vain. As you wish. Dugu said as he held the God Devourer sword with both hands. Powerful sword chi burst out. 13 demonic swords, bloody slaughter, vanishing shadow, burning star, moon slashing, eclipse sun. Duguqioma's 5 swords were unleashed together. The sword chi seemed to want to split the heavens and earth. The powerful fluctuations made many people's eyes twitch. Duguqioma is the real king. Many heaven prides exclaimed. Zhang Sun Aojiwa and Zhao Shinkong's performance had already shocked many heaven prides. But that shock couldn't compare to the shock brought by Duguqioma's quenching devil. This was a true heaven's pride. Many people began to worry about Yi Guchen. That Duguqioma's strength is so strong. Zhao Shinkong was nursing his injuries while observing the battle. Duguqioma's quenching devil made him extremely wary. Let's hope he can survive. Zhao Xiaodi prayed for Yi Guchen in his heart. 13 demonic swords, interesting. Yi Guchen smiled faintly. To be honest, Yi Guchen didn't expect that Duguqioma would be able to inherit the demonic sword Emperor Jitian's ultimate technique by chance. Back in the Tianhuang Plains, the demonic sword Emperor Jitian used the 13 demonic swords. In his primordial spirit state, the 3 saint projections were helpless against him. Now that Duguqioma was using it, its power was also shocking. But this is still not enough. Yi Guchen unleashed the 3 ultimate sacred swords, and 3 sword rays merged in the void. It was the 3 ultimate sacred swords' ultimate technique, moon falling star sinking vast yang break. The sword rays burned fiercely and mightily as they collided with Duguqioma's 5 swords. Duguqioma's feet flashed as he used the divine movement secret technique. In an instant, he appeared in front of Yi Guchen. He didn't use his sword. Instead, He activated the third transformation battle god demon body and punched out. The black fist ray seemed to destroy the void. Seeing this, Yi Guchen didn't use his sword either. Instead, he activated his ancient god power and summoned his ancient god body. The battle god demon body against the ancient god body. Boom. When the two fists collided, black and golden rays of light shot out. Duguqioma was like a demonic dragon roaring to the sky. Yi Guchen was like a golden god of war, suppressing the universe. The two of them started a pure hand-to-hand fight. Duguqioma's battle god demon body became stronger and stronger as the fight went on. Yi Guchen's ancient god body flowed with countless ancient clan runes as he punched the sky. The two of them are like daggers against an all. Seeing such an intense battle, everyone present was extremely shocked. That's great. Chioma isn't afraid of Jiankui after all. Princess Luoho was delighted. Previously, she was still a little worried because Yi Guchen's performance had made her a little nervous. However, seeing the current situation, Princess Luoho finally calmed down. Yi Guchen couldn't suppress Duguqioma. The growth of the doppelganger is amazing. I'm curious to see how much power Duguqioma can give me if I merge with him. Yi Guchen muttered to himself. Yi Guchen realized that he couldn't suppress Duguqioma. This was a good thing for Yi Guchen. If Duguqioma could be easily suppressed by him, then there would be no reason for the doppelganger to exist. Main body, can you take this move? Duguqioma said to himself. He activated the soul-devouring demon eye. In an instant, Yi Guchen felt his soul power churn in his sea of consciousness. Interesting. Is this the talent of the soul-devouring clan? Yi Guchen thought to himself. This kind of move could be fatal to others. However, Yi Guchen didn't have to worry about it at all, because even Duguqioma's sea of consciousness was split from Yi Guchen's sea of consciousness. In addition, Yi Guchen had the chaotic sea of consciousness refined by the Nine Tribulations Heart Sutra. This level of attack couldn't threaten Yi Guchen at all. As expected of the main body, my soul-devouring demon eye is a killer move against others, but it can't threaten the main body, Duguqioma thought to himself. What's going on? Duguqioma's signature move, that demon eye, doesn't seem to work on Jiankui? The surrounding sky prides were surprised. One of Duguqioma's most terrifying trump cards was that dark golden demon eye. It wasn't just a saying that anyone who stared at it would die. However, Yi Guchen was unscathed in the face of this demon eye. This surprised everyone. However, no one thought about the real reason. They only thought that Yi Guchen had some means to protect his sea of consciousness. The sparring between Yi Guchen and Duguqioma continued. However, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the two of them weren't using their full strength. That was indeed the case. Yi Guchen didn't use his all-creation sword Dao, ultimate sword domain, thousand god tribulation sword technique, and so on. Duguqioma didn't use his great god devouring technique, the last few moves of the demon 13 swords, the 7 limits of devouring heaven and earth, and so on. After all, this was a sparring session. Yi Guchen naturally couldn't fight to the death with Duguqioma. There was no need for that. What's going on? Why isn't Chioma using his full strength? Princess Luoho was puzzled. Looking at their puzzled gazes, Yi Guchen wanted to laugh. He wondered how they would feel when they found out the truth in the future. Just as Yi Guchen was about to stop, suddenly, a wretched figure with wounds on her body flew over from afar. Young Master Dugu. Chapter 1292. In the distant horizon, a beautiful woman in a sapphire blue dress could be seen. Her dress was stained with blood, and her delicate face was pale. She stumbled across the sky and rushed toward Dao Comprehension Mountain. Behind the woman, over 10 figures had appeared, and they were encircling and pursuing the woman in a blue dress. This blue-dressed woman was Han Lingxian. She had heard that Yi Guchen was comprehending the Dao at Dao Comprehension Mountain, which was why she had rushed over. Young Master Dugu. Han Lingxian called out weakly. It's Han Lingxian. Yi Guchen immediately looked over. When he saw that Han Lingxian was being chased, his eyes immediately sharpened. You're all courting death. Yi Guchen used the divine movement secret technique and flashed away. Duguqioma sheathed his sword, a cold light flashing in his eyes. Yi Guchen's figure flashed and appeared beside Han Lingxian in an instant. When she saw Yi Guchen appear beside her, Han Lingshuan's pale face calmed down, and she heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Guchen could always give her a sense of security. Oh no! It's Jian Kuei from the Sword Dynasty. Let's retreat. The dozen or so heavenly talents who were chasing after Han Lingxian turned pale when they saw Yi Guchen, who was wearing a ghost mask. They turned around and were about to flee. Yi Guchen's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Do you think you can leave? Yi Guchen held the Nine-Dragon Thunder prison, his eyes as cold as ice. His principle was to be benevolent and kill when necessary. He could spare Zhao Shenkong, but he could not spare this group of prodigies in front of him. Die. Yi Guchen's words were like the judgment of the god of death. He flicked his finger, and more than 10 drops of mystic essence heavy water shot through the air, instantly piercing the chests of the prodigies. Their bodies fell to the ground like birds with broken wings. Han Lingxian was shocked to see Yi Guchen kill more than 10 prodigies in an instant. Young Master Dugu is already so powerful? Han Lingxian sighed inwardly. What's going on? Why are they chasing after you alone? Yi Guchen asked. When Han Lingxian heard this, she suddenly reacted and hurriedly said, That's right, young Master Dugu, hurry and save Xingzhu. In order to help me escape. She faced the pursuit of dozens of prodigies alone. How could this be? Yi Guchen's expression changed. Yi Guchen had been in seclusion, so he did not know why the prodigies of prodigies from the Sword Dynasty were being targeted. However, this was not the time to waste. Lead the way, Yi Guchen said. Han Lingxian nodded slightly and led Yi Guchen away. What's going on? Looks like something happened to the Sword Son of the Sword Dynasty. Let's go and take a look. Many geniuses followed closely behind like a swarm of bees. Let's go too. Zhao Shenkong had recovered a lot from his injuries, so he and Zhao Xiaodi followed. Dao Wuming, Guzun, Yi Songyue, Wan'er, and the others also left. Dugu Qiuma also wanted to follow. Qiuma, why? You don't seem to be doing your best? Princess Luoho probed. Do I need to do what you want me to do? Dugu Qiuma said coldly. My apologies. Princess Luoho lowered her head. Dugu Qiuma followed with Chen Qingxiao. Princess Luoho bit her lip and followed. At the edge of the Sage Realm's inheritance ground, a girl in a turquoise dress was fleeing while brandishing her sword. Soul Sword Dao, sword seal of 1,000 souls. The young girl was none other than Mu Xingzhu. She activated the power of the immortal soul pearl in her sea of consciousness. Vast soul power surged out and transformed into numerous soul sword seals. The soul sword seals charged toward the dozens of sky prides who were chasing after them. Poof, poof, poof. 6 or 7 prodigies cried out in pain as their heads split open and they died. However, more and more sky prides surrounded them like wolves that had smelled blood. Everyone, let's attack together. Mu Xingzhu is Jian Kuei's disciple. If we can capture her and offer her to young Master Xingyun, it will be a great contribution. A prodigy shouted. That's right. Young Master Xingyun will reward us handsomely if we capture Mu Xingzhu. The surrounding prodigies surrounded them like wolves and tigers. Mu Xingzhu had no way out. Her fair and delicate face was filled with anger as she said, Do you people deserve to be called prodigies? Are you all willing to be Gu Xiaoyang's lackeys? Ha! We just want to join the overlord forces. Miss Mu, we have to trouble you. A prodigy said coldly. Mu Xingzhu's face darkened. She knew that there was nothing more to say to these people. Boom. The group of prodigies attacked together. Mu Xingzhu was alone. She had Yingning in her body. However, there were special rules in the sacred imperial world. Even if Yingning appeared, she would not be able to use her powers. Therefore, Mu Xingzhu had to rely on herself. Boom, boom, boom. After a series of intense exchanges, Mu Xingzhu retreated. Blood flowed from the corner of her mouth and her body was covered in wounds. Even a fierce tiger could not fight against a pack of wolves. Moreover, Mu Xingzhu was not weak. However, she was not strong enough to fight against dozens of prodigies. Miss Mo, I think you should just surrender obediently. You're just going to be a prisoner. It's not like anything will happen to you. One of the sky prides mocked her. I, Mu Xingzhu, will never become Gu Xiaoyang's prisoner. Mu Xingzu said coldly. She knew that Gu Xiaoyang and Yi Guqin were mortal enemies. She could not allow Mu Xingzu to be held captive by Yi Guqin's enemy. Aha, if that's the case, don't blame us for being ruthless. That prodigy's eyes shone with a cold light. He immediately attacked. However, in the next moment, a sword ray that seemed to pierce through heaven and earth flew across the sky and pierced through that prodigy's chest. You are the ones who are going to hell. A cold voice came from afar. Mu Xingzu trembled when she heard that voice. She was pleasantly surprised. She turned around and saw Yi Guqin, Han Lingxian, and the others flying toward her from afar. Master! Mu Xingzu cried out in joy. Yi Guqin appeared in front of Mu Xingzu in a flash. He looked at Mu Xingzu's pale face and blood-stained lips. His heart was filled with murderous intent toward those who were after her. Xingzhu, I'm sorry for hurting you. Yi Guqin raised his hand and gently wiped away the blood at the corner of Mu Xingzu's lips. Mu Xingzu's face blushed slightly. Her heart was filled with joy. Yi Guqin rarely did such intimate actions. Mu Xingzu suddenly felt that all the injuries she had suffered were worth it to be able to receive Yi Guqin's gentleness at this moment. Xingzhu, wait for me. Let me get rid of those annoying fellows first. After Yi Guqin finished speaking, he turned to the dozens of prodigies. It's Jiankui. Why is he here? Some of the prodigies were terrified. What are you afraid of? There are dozens of us. Why should we be afraid of one person? Another prodigy said as if to boost their courage. Even if you're willing to be someone else's lackey, you should be prepared to have your legs broken. Yi Guqin pointed his sword to the sky and pointed his other hand to the ground. He gathered the power of the universe and formed a heaven-piercing sword. A golden holy sword that was 1,000 feet long appeared between heaven and earth like a sword of judgment. Yi Guqin's sword swept out and shook the universe. The dozens of prodigies were horrified. They felt as if their courage had been shattered. Chapter 1293. The energy waves that Yi Guqin was exuding were too powerful. The golden holy sword was like a sword that hung over their heads, ready to harvest their lives. Uft. Yi Guqin swung his sword in a carefree manner. Among the dozens of sky prides, the weaker ones exploded into pieces, their blood splattering everywhere. Even some of the stronger sky prides spat out mouthfuls of blood, along with their shattered organs. More than 20 sky prides were killed with one sweep of the sword. The remaining dozen sky prides were also severely injured. They stared at Yi Guqin in horror. They had heard about Yi Guqin and knew that he was powerful. However, they did not expect him to be this powerful. He was fighting against dozens of sky prides alone, and with a casual swing of his sword, blood splattered everywhere. That's terrifying. Run. He's so powerful. Jiankui is definitely comparable to an overlord-level sky prides. The group of sky prides who were on the brink of death were terrified. They turned around and fled like stray dogs. Yi Guqin's eyes were cold. Sword chi gushed out from the tip of his sword. Every ray of sword chi took a life. Before long, all the sky prides who were chasing after Mu Xingzu were dead. Master's strength is getting stronger and stronger. Mu Xingzhu's eyes glowed with admiration as she watched. However, Mu Xingzu said anxiously, Master, please go and save the other swordsmen. They were surrounded by sky prides and were suppressed by Gu Xiaoyang. Yi Guqin said coldly, I didn't expect him to be in such a hurry to die before I even went to find him. If that's the case, then there should be a conclusion. Yi Guqin knew that the opening of the sage's inheritance meant that the battle in the sacred imperial world had reached its final stage. Although Yi Guqin did not know how to obtain the sacred emperor's inheritance, it was obviously related to the sage's inheritance. After the sage's inheritance, the battle in the sacred imperial world would probably be over. That was because Yi Guqin and Gu Xiaoyang were about to come to an end. He originally wanted to deal with Gu Xiaoyang after obtaining the sacred emperor's inheritance. However, it seemed that Gu Xiaoyang was indeed in a hurry to be reincarnated. Gu Xiaoyang, the sacred imperial world will be your burial ground. Yi Guqin's eyes were cold. Go to the sage's inheritance, Yi Guqin. But other than Gu Xiaoyang, there's also Jiang Qingsang, Jiang Shiyu, and Chu Xuanjin from the Heavenly God Sword sect. She knew that Yi Guqin had a deep grudge against the heavenly god sword sect. It doesn't matter. Today, I'll kill all who stand in my way. Yi Guqin's killing intent soared to the heavens. Gu Xiaoyang's actions had completely crossed his bottom line. Yi Guqin wanted to kill and sacrifice his sword with his blood. Okay. Mu Xingzhu nodded as her eyes flashed with brilliance. Yi Guqin's black hair fluttered in the wind. His aura was awe-inspiring. Without any hesitation, Yi Guqin and the others went to the sage's inheritance. The others, such as Dugu, Qiuma, Chen Qingxiao, Princess Luoho, Dao Wuming, Guzun Yitsongyue, the witch, Zhao Shinkong, and Zhao Xiaodi, followed closely behind. They all believed that the sacred imperial world would have an ultimate battle in the sacred imperial world. That was something to look forward to. At the moment, in a ruin in the sage's inheritance, Chu Xuanjin sat cross-legged in the endless divine light, absorbing Jian Jinghong's fortune. Not far away, a row of people knelt on the ground. They were the swordsmen of the Sword Dynasty. Jian Jinghong, Xuanlian, Jiang Fingmian, Ling Emoshu, Su Zihao, Ling Maoyin, Suki Miyazaki, and Kong Kong. At that moment, their bodies were all covered with deep scars and bloodstains. It was an extremely glaring sight. Jian Jinghong, Xuanlian, and Kong Kong were severely injured by Chu Xuanjin, Gu Xiaoyang, and the others. Jiang Fingmian, Ling Emoshu, and the others were besieged by a large group of swordsmen. A fierce tiger could not defeat a pack of wolves. In the end, it was severely injured and suppressed. Now, the swordsmen had been restrained. Their spiritual dwellings were sealed, and they could not fight back. There were dozens of swordsmen guarding around them. These swordsmen were the ones who helped suppress the swordsmen. Gu Xiaoyang had promised that they could join the Starry Sword Pavilion after the battle in the sacred imperial world. At this moment, Gu Xiaoyang, Jiang Qingsong, and Jiang Shi were also there. Gu Xiaoyang was very scheming. He deliberately did not move but stayed there. It was because Chu Xuanjin was also there. Gu Xiaoyang had learned that Yi Guqin had some conflicts with Chu Xuanjin at the trade fair in the sacred city of Fortune. Therefore, Gu Xiaoyang did not move. To a certain extent, he had drawn Chu Xuanjin to his side. Moreover, Chu Xuanjin obviously did not care about these details. Therefore, Gu Xiaoyang had another powerful ally. Under such circumstances, Gu Xiaoyang knew that no matter how deeply the sword chief had hidden himself, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Senior brother Gu, I hope you don't be careless. Jin Kuei is not an ordinary person, Jiang Qingsong said. Although he hated Yi Guqin very much, he had to admit that Yi Guqin was indeed very good at hiding. Don't worry. This time, with me and Chu Xuanjin here, we can even defeat the 4 emperors. Do you think Jian Kuei is better than the 4 emperors? Gu Xiaoyang smiled faintly. That's right. Jiang Qingsong nodded slightly. Although he thought highly of Yi Guqin, he obviously did not think that he could be as strong as the 4 emperors. I can't wait to see the sword leader suppressed. Then, I'll behead these sword sons one by one in front of him. I'll use this to comfort the souls of my 2 brothers in heaven. Jiang Shiyu's tone was cold and resentful. The 4 brothers were of one mind, and had always been very close. It was because of this that they hated Yi Guqin so much that they used such means of revenge. That sword leader won't retreat in the face of difficulties and not come, right? Jiang Shiyu frowned. They had been here for a few days, but they had not seen Yi Guqin's figure. If Jin Kuei is really as unyielding as the rumors say, then he will definitely come, Gu Xiaoyang said confidently. Gu Xiaoyang had always been very accurate when it came to reading people's minds. Clap, clap, clap. Just as Gu Xiaoyang finished speaking, there was a sudden clap. Hearing this, Gu Xiaoyang and the others' faces suddenly changed. Ha! As expected of young Master Xingyun of the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion. Your guess is so accurate. If you knew that I would come for you. Funeral. As soon as the words funeral were said, a figure stepped on the air and came from afar. With every step he took, his true qi increased by a level. The surging aura seemed to have disturbed the clouds in the sky. Sword qi was everywhere, shaking the sky and the earth. Killing intent surged for 100,000 miles. Battle intent surged through the 9 heavens. A slender figure wearing a seamless ghost mask, and holding the 9-dragon thunder prison shook the world. Gu Xiaoyang, today, I will defeat you. Chapter 1294. A voice as cold as frost resounded between heaven and earth. Yi Guqin came with a sword to kill. He's here. Jiankui from the Sword Dynasty is really here. Given Jiankui's character, it's not surprising. It's just that he's a little irrational this time. That's right. He's walking right into a trap. A large group of geniuses had gathered around. They had been watching from the beginning when Jian Jinghong and Chu Xuanjin were fighting. As the conflict escalated, they naturally wanted to know the outcome. Moreover, the land of inheritance of the Saint Realm was the greatest opportunity in the Holy Imperial Realm. They didn't need to go anywhere else. Therefore, thousands of geniuses had gathered here, waiting for the outcome of the conflict. Yi Guqin stepped into the void. With every step he took, his aura surged in his killing intent sword. The grudge of his sword embryo being stolen, the long-accumulated grudge, and the act of suppressing the sword princes. Gu Xiaoyang had crossed all of Yi Guqin's bottom lines. Today, in the Holy Imperial Realm, the grudge between Yi Guqin and Gu Xiaoyang would come to an end. As long as he could kill Gu Xiaoyang, Yi Guqin would do his best. He wouldn't even hesitate to expose his identity, because enemies must be killed. Jiankui, you're finally here. Gu Xiaoyang frowned slightly when he saw Yi Guqin. He frowned not because of Yi Guqin's arrival, but because of Yi Guqin's killing intent. Gu Xiaoyang was a little confused. If he were in Yi Guqin's shoes, Gu Xiaoyang would also be angry, but his killing intent wouldn't be so strong. Why does Jiankui's attitude feel like he has a blood feud with me? Gu Xiaoyang felt a little uneasy. However, he thought about the current situation and the presence of Chu Xuanjin. It seemed that no accident could happen. After calming down, Gu Xiaoyang regained his composure. Next to Yi Guqin, Mu Xingzu and Han Lingxian followed closely. Afterwards, the group of geniuses from Dao Comprehension Mountain also followed. When they saw the Sword Dynasty's sword sons being suppressed, the Sky Prides who had followed along were also shocked. They had all been at Enlightenment Mountain before, so they hadn't heard the news. When Dugu Qiuma saw this, a baleful aura surged in his eyes. If it wasn't for Yi Guqin restraining him, he would have attacked Gu Xiaoyang and the others. However, Dugu Qiuma also knew that Gu Xiaoyang was Yi Guqin's sore point, and he needed to resolve it himself. Therefore, Dugu begged the demons not to interfere in the battle between Yi Guqin and Gu Xiaoyang. Defeating me? Hehe, in the entire South Horizon region, there might be a few 9 Heavens Supremes who are qualified to say such words, but you are definitely not one of them. Gu Xiaoyang looked calm as if victory was already in his hands. Your personality is still the same as before. High and mighty, condescending, Yi Guqin said with a cold laugh, as if there was a deeper meaning in his words. When Gu Xiaoyang arrived at the Tianhuang Plains, he looked down on Yi Guqin like a celestial being, as if he was looking at an ant. Now this ant in his eyes was truly on the same level as him, and even had the strength to kill him. You. Gu Xiaoyang frowned. Judging from his tone, could it be that Jiankui knew him before? However, no matter how hard Gu Xiaoyang racked his brains, he couldn't remember where he had met Jiankui before. As for Yi Guqin's name, Gu Xiaoyang had long forgotten it. It was impossible for him to remember it. Brother Dugu, young Master Dugu, Jian Jinghong Ling Mayin, and the others were touched and ashamed when they saw that Yi Guqin wanted to save them. If you let them go now, I can still leave your corpses intact. Yi Guqin glanced coldly at the dozens of prodigies guarding the area. One of the prodigies stepped forward and said with disdain, Jiankui, who do you think you are? Young Master Xingyun has the final say in this place. When the time comes, he'll kill you as well. With a backer behind him, his confidence was indeed different. Heh. Yi Guqin sneered and flicked his finger. A water droplet shot through the air. That move was extremely fast. Even Gu Xiaoyang was stunned for a moment before he reacted. Back off. Gu Xiaoyang shouted in a low voice. However, it was too late. Plop. The mystic essence heavy water directly pierced through that prodigy's head. Then, it pierced through the heads of the other prodigies without slowing down. In an instant, the corpses collapsed to the ground. Their eyes were wide open and filled with confusion. They didn't even know how they died. At that moment, the world fell silent. Those prodigies were destined to join the Starry Sword Pavilion in the future, so they were considered Gu Xiaoyang's lackeys. However, they were killed by Yi Guqin with a flick of his finger. That was equivalent to killing Gu Xiaoyang's men in front of him. Hiss! Many of the prodigies gasped. That was a slap to Gu Xiaoyang's face, and it was a resounding slap. Jiankui, are you that eager to die? Gu Xiaoyang's voice was cold. You're the one who's eager to die. Yi Guqin said indifferently. Gu Xiaoyang signaled with his eyes, and the prodigy's eyes glinted fiercely. With Gu Xiaoyang behind them, there was nothing they did not dare to do. Moreover, if they could gain Gu Xiaoyang's appreciation, they would be able to do whatever they wanted in the Starry Sword Pavilion in the future. Therefore, those prodigies did not hesitate to besiege Yi Guqin. Not only that, Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Xiyu also attacked at the same time, charging towards Yi Guqin from the left and right respectively. Facing a group of enemies, Yi Guqin's eyes did not change in the slightest. If Yi Guqin had felt a little pressured before the battle at Enlightenment Mountain, then now he was not afraid at all. Master, we're here to help you, Mu Xingzu said. All of you back off. I alone am enough. Yi Guqin held his sword horizontally, and his other hand slowly stroked the blade. The 9-dragon thunder prison produced a buzzing sound, as if it was thirsting for blood and slaughter. One sword to hold the pass. Gu Xiaoyang, not even the heavens can stop me from killing you today. As Yi Guqin's words fell, the leakless divine palace operated, and the natural qi of the 4th layer of the divine palace gushed out. It was 10 times stronger. In terms of the strength of his natural qi, he was not inferior to a peerless prodigy of the 7th or 8th layer of the divine palace. Qianyang Sword of Extinction. Kuan Moon Sword of Extinction. Star-breaking Sword of Extinction. The 3 swords were unleashed together, slashing forward in a mighty manner. Blood immediately splattered, and heads rolled. 7 or 8 prodigies were instantly beheaded. This scene shocked many people, and made them incomparably terrified. If Yi Guqin really wanted to kill, his degree of ruthlessness would not be inferior to Duguqioma. Jiankui, don't be so arrogant. Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Xiyu surrounded him from the left and right. Their swords stabbed out, and starry sword qi surged. Gu Xiaoyang watched from the side. The reason why he did not attack immediately was because he wanted to find out how strong Jiankui was, and what kind of trump cards he was hiding. Gu Xiaoyang had never done anything risky. Get out of my way. Yi Guqin's sword vibrated, and he brandished it. If Jiang Qingsong and the others could cause him some trouble before, then he did not need to worry about them at all now. However, Yi Guqin's strategy was to kill those annoying flies first. One prodigy after another fell, and blood splattered on the ground. While the fierce battle continued, no one noticed that the blood had seeped into the ground. Vaguely, there seemed to be some runes flickering on the surface of the entire sacred domain's inheritance ground. Chapter 1295. Blood splattered everywhere, and the smell of blood filled the air. If Yi Guqin wanted to kill, who could stop him? As the heads rolled down, Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Xiyu watched in shock and anger. Those dozens of elites were killed by Yi Guqin one by one. Since Yi Guqin had used the divine movement secret skill, Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Xiyu could not stop Yi Guqin. They could only watch helplessly as dozens of supreme talents were killed. As for Gu Xiaoyang, he had been watching coldly from the sidelines. Gu Xiaoyang did not feel sorry for the deaths of those elites. Those elites were just pawns to be used. Since he had achieved his goal, it did not matter if he gave them up. It was better to say that Yi Guqin's massacre had saved Gu Xiaoyang the trouble of recruiting them into the sect. If those elites knew about it in the netherworld, they would definitely be extremely regretful and curse Gu Xiaoyang for what he had done. Damn it, Jiankui, you are too arrogant. Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Xiyu's faces were filled with shock and anger. The two of them did not hesitate at all, and immediately besieged him. With Gu Xiaoyang and Chu Xuanjun behind them, they were very confident and fearless. Star Refining Demon Slaying Sword. Jiang Xiyu's sword vibrated, and surging star sword qi burst out, as if it could cut down the stars in the sky. Big Dipper Sword Chi. Jiang Qingsong activated the power of his spiritual abode, and surging sword chi gushed out, as if it had turned into a star-slaying sword and slashed toward Yi Guqin. The two of them were also elites from the Overlord forces, but at this moment, they attacked at the same time. Their eyes were bloodshot and filled with rage. They only wanted to suppress Yi Guqin and torture him until he was better off dead. Yi Guqin's lips curled into a cold smile when he saw the two of them attacking. He was no longer afraid of the two of them. Heaven's punishment, thunder prison, divine annihilation, heavenly punishment. Yi Guqin activated the sword realm of the Thunderbolt sword principle, and used the ultimate killing move of the divine sword lightning controlling technique at the same time, coupled with the tenfold increase in vital energy of the leakless divine abode. That powerful attack sent chills down the spines of the thousands of sky prides around. Endless thunderbolts surged out, as if they had turned the surrounding world into a lightning domain of destruction. Rumble. This violent attack directly destroyed Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Shiyu's moves. Thunder surged violently and bombarded the two of them without slowing down. Puchi. Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Shiyu both retreated, coughing up blood. Their chests were charred black, and it was obvious that they had suffered serious injuries. How is this possible? The two of them widened their eyes in shock. They had fought Yi Guqin before and knew that he was strong. But now, Yi Guqin's strength had risen to another level, which made them feel even more shocked and powerless. In fact, Yi Guqin gave them the illusion that they were facing a proud son of heaven on the level of the four emperors. This Jin Kuei is indeed capable. Gu Xiaoyang muttered to himself as he watched the battle from a short distance away. He was a conceited person, but Yi Guqin's strength had indeed made Gu Xiaoyang's expression become a little more serious. But that was all. He was still confident that he could suppress Yi Guqin. Damn it, second brother. Use that combo move and suppress him with all your strength, Jiang Qingsong ordered coldly. Okay. Jiang Shiyu nodded. They didn't expect Yi Guqin to be so powerful. They had to join forces and use their trump cards, or else they wouldn't have the slightest hope. Celestial manifestation. Jiang Qingsong's aura erupted, an endless star true chi surged out, as if dyeing the sky into a starry sky. Infinite stars. Jiang Shiyu also activated his true chi to the extreme, and Star Sword Chi soared into the sky. Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Shiyu combined their moves in front of the crowd of heaven's favorites. The surging real chi of stars turned into a shadow of stars that could annihilate the heavens and the earth. Then it pressed down on Yi Guqin. Both of them were heaven prides at the sixth layer of the divine dwelling realm, and their combined ultimate move was extremely powerful. Even some of the Overlord forces' heaven prides wore solemn expressions. If they were in Yi Guqin's place, they would also feel tremendous pressure in the face of such an ultimate move. Yi Guqin's expression didn't change at all. He raised his sword, and 8 trigrams appeared in the void at the same time. They were then destroyed at the same time, and 8 different types of sword chi soared into the sky, intertwining and merging in the air to form a terrifying sword chi wheel. 8 extremities reincarnation, heaven and earth annihilation. Yi Guqin had displayed the ultimate move of the 8 extremities reincarnation sword art. Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Shiyu's combined attack also came crashing down. Celestial manifestation. Infinite stars. Rumble. The sword chi wheel ruthlessly broke into the star shadow, and a tremendous rumble erupted. Violent waves swept across the sky like wild waves. A ring-shaped wave of chi exploded. In the collision, Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Shiyu violently vomited blood, and their sternum shattered. Their bodies were sent flying like kites with their strings cut. Yi Guqin had condensed the ancient god immovable king armor on the surface of his body, and the force of the collision only made Yi Guqin's body tremble slightly. The pupils of all the heaven prides around shrank, and their gazes froze. They didn't expect such a result. Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Shiyu were completely defeated. Die. Yi Guqin's eyes were cold, flickering like a cold star. Yi Guqin had long wanted to kill the two of them. Holding the 9-dragon thunder prison, he thrust it at the two of them. Stop! Gu Xiaoyang roared, and his figure moved. Gu Xiaoyang could remain indifferent to the death of the dozens of heaven prides. But after all, Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Shiyu were from the Starry Sword Pavilion, and now they had pledged allegiance to him. Gu Xiaoyang naturally couldn't watch them be killed by Yi Guqin. Just as Gu Xiaoyang was about to make his move, a sword radiance suddenly swept across the sky, slashing toward Gu Xiaoyang. Who is it? Gu Xiaoyang's eyes flashed coldly, and he raised his hand. The seven-star illusionary god, a heavenly tribulation divine weapon, fell into his hand. His sword vibrated, and it collided with the sword radiance that pierced through the sky. And also taking advantage of this gap, Yi Guqin no longer had any obstacles. He channeled his true qi, and the 9-dragon lightning prison sword's edge appeared one after another. The 9-dragon lightning prison sword roared as it charged toward Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Shiyu. No, senior brother Gu, save me. Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Shiyu were so shocked that their faces turned pale, and they screamed loudly. Boom. But it was too late. Gu Xiaoyang's figure was obstructed, and he couldn't reach out to help in time. The souls of thunder dragons bombarded Jiang Qingsong and Jiang Shiyu, causing their bodies to be charred black, and their flesh to be torn open. Yi Guqin flashed by, accompanied by a dazzling sword radiance. 2 charred heads rolled down to the ground. The 4-star lords were all dead. Dead silence. All the heaven prides seemed to have stopped breathing at this moment. The famous 4-star lords of the Starry Sword Pavilion had all died in the sacred imperial realm. And most importantly, the 4 of them had all died in the hands of the same person. Damn it! Gu Xiaoyang's face was gloomy and ferocious, and he was on the verge of rage. He looked into the distance, and stared at the figure that was slowly approaching. Jun. Xiao. Yao. Chapter 1296. Gu Xiaoyang's eyes were cold and piercing. He looked at the white-robed figure coming from the air, and uttered his name word by word. The newcomer was none other than Jun Xiaoyao of the Luofu Sword Pavilion. He was also the one who released the sword light to stop Gu Xiaoyang from saving them. At that moment, Jun Xiaoyao came from the air. His clothes were as white as snow. His face was like the autumn moon, his eyes were like dots of paint, and his eyebrows were like ink paintings. He looked handsome and elegant. He looked at Gu Xiaoyang, whose expression was as gloomy as water, and said with a leisurely smile on his handsome face, Gu Xiaoyang, why are you so angry? With the 4-star lords dead, there is no one who can threaten your position in the Starry Sword Pavilion. You. Gu Xiaoyang's chest heaved. If it weren't for his scheming, he would have lost his mind out of anger. Jun Xiaoyao's words were obviously mocking him. On the other side, Yi Guqin, who killed Jiang Qingsong and the others, was also surprised. He didn't expect Jun Xiaoyao to come and help him. Thank you, brother Jun. Yi Guqin nodded slightly and said, It's nothing. Don't mention it. Jun Xiaoyao smiled faintly. The Luofu Sword Pavilion and the Starry Sword Pavilion were at odds. Jun Xiaoyao and Gu Xiaoyang naturally couldn't live in harmony. One of them was the chief disciple of the Luofu Sword Pavilion. The other was the seed of the Starry Sword Pavilion. They often had conflicts, which could suppress Gu Xiaoyang's arrogance. Jun Xiaoyao was happy to see that happen. Gu Xiaoyang's expression was uncertain. He didn't expect Jun Xiaoyao to appear out of nowhere. At that moment, Yi Guqin landed beside Jian Jinghong and the others and began to undo the seals in their bodies. Jun Xiaoyao kept staring at Gu Xiaoyang. Gu Xiaoyang couldn't stop Yi Guqin from saving them, being targeted by Jun Xiaoyao. It didn't take long for the seals in Jian Jinghong and the others to be removed. They stared at Gu Xiaoyang with resentment in their eyes. Brother Jinghong, you're all severely injured and can't fight. Leave them to me, Yi Guqin said. I'm really ashamed. We didn't even do anything and had to rely on Brother Dugu to save us. Jian Jinghong was unwilling and blamed himself. Since I am the Jiankui, I naturally have to shoulder this responsibility. Leave it to me. Yi Guqin smiled, not minding it at all. Moreover, Gu Xiaoyang could only be ended by him. After saving Jian Jinghong and the others, Yi Guqin no longer had any worries. He turned around and looked at Gu Xiaoyang. Gu Xiaoyang frowned as he faced Jun Xiaorao and Yi Guqin. The surrounding sky prides also felt that Gu Xiaoyang was in a bad situation. However, just when everyone thought that Gu Xiaoyang might choose to run away, a rumbling sound was heard from the divine light not far away. A beam of sword aura tore through the divine light and headed straight for Yi Guqin and Jun Xiaoyao. Humph! Jun Xiaoyao's expression turned cold as he stepped out. His sword aura shot to the sky. Boom! The sword aura collided and annihilated the void. A cold voice with a hint of mockery was heard. Gu Xiaoyang, your starry sword pavilion can't be so weak, right? A handsome young man in white stepped out of the divine light with his hands behind his back. Wherever his feet passed, endless sword aura soared into the sky. He looked like the king of sky prides. Who else could it be but Chu Xuanjin? Has Chu Xuanjin really finished digesting the inheritance of the saint? Haha, this is getting interesting. On one side is Jun Xiaoyao and Jian Kuei, and on the other side is Gu Xiaoyang and Chu Xuanjin. It's like an arrow against an on. Seeing Chu Xuanjin step forward, all the sky prides stared at him without blinking. Chu Xuanjin. Jun Xiaoyao narrowed his eyes and looked solemn. As one of the top 10 young masters, Jun Xiaoyao naturally knew how strong Chu Xuanjin was. The Sword King physique was not just for show. At the moment, 3 of the top 10 young masters were present. Including Dao Wuming, who was watching the battle, all 4 young masters were present. Everyone was curious about how the situation would develop next. Jian Kuei, I didn't expect you to be able to make it this far. Chu Xuanjin turned to look at Yi Guqin. To be honest, Chu Xuanjin also didn't expect that the sky pride of the dynasty, whom he didn't take seriously, could make it this far. Even the 4 young star lords, who were overlord-level sky prides, died in his hands. But if that was all, Chu Xuanjin wouldn't be afraid. After all, he was used to being superior. Among the sky prides in the entire Nantian region, no one could make Chu Xuanjin afraid except for Di Haotian. So Chu Xuanjin, are you going to stand on the same side as Gu Xiaoyang? Jun Xiaoyao said lightly. I, Chu Xuanjin, will not join forces with anyone. But Jian Kuei is indeed a bit of an eyesore. Chu Xuanjin's tone was indifferent. The reason why he found Yi Guqin an eyesore was naturally the conflict at the trade fair. Heh. Then there's nothing to talk about. Jun Xiaoyao sneered. Yi Guqin had once lent him a helping hand, and Jun Xiaoyao would never forget that. Therefore, even when facing Chu Xuanjin, Jun Xiaoyao had no intention of backing down. Brother Jun, you don't have to do this, Yi Guqin said. He didn't want to drag Jun Xiaoyao down with him. In Jian Kuei's eyes, am I the kind of person who will stand aside and watch coldly when a friend is in trouble? Jun Xiaoyao said with a smile. At this point, Yi Guqin didn't say anything more and nodded slightly. Jian Kuei died. Gu Xiaoyang couldn't hold back anymore, and was about to make a move. However, at this moment, the entire sacred land of inheritance suddenly rumbled and shook. Countless runes emerged from the ground and circulated endlessly. What's going on? There seems to be a formation on the ground. This scene was too sudden. Many sky prides were a little stunned. Yi Guqin and the others also raised their eyebrows and looked at the ground. Gu Xiaoyang stopped moving, and also looked at the ground. Rumble. Buildings that looked like altars rose from the ground. Divine light surged on each of the altars. Vaguely, there seemed to be the silhouettes of saints and saint kings flashing. Could it be the sacred land of inheritance? Some sky prides were stunned and unprecedentedly shocked. This was something that had never happened before in the sacred emperor world. In the past, the sky prides who entered the sacred land of inheritance were just looking for opportunities in some ruins. It was impossible for a group of sacred land of inheritance to appear all at once like this. Yi Guqin suddenly felt that the golden lotus seed in his vital ring seemed to be burning. Could this change have something to do with the golden lotus seed in my body? Or could it be that the blood of those people I killed before flowed into the ground and the 2 factors worked together to cause this change? Yi Guqin guessed. However, no matter what, all the sky prides were now focused on the sacred land of inheritance. Even if they could get the sacred land of inheritance, it would be a great gain. The sacred land of inheritance is more important. Chu Xuanjin and Gu Xiaoyang were straightforward. They went to find the sacred land of inheritance that they were fated with. Seeing this, Yi Guqin didn't make a move for the time being. After all, time waits for no man. If he missed this opportunity, there wouldn't be another one. As long as the sacred imperial realm wasn't closed, He could kill Gu Xiaoyang at any time. Chapter 1297. After figuring this out, Yi Guchen turned to Jun Xiaorao and said, "Brother Jun, let's go look for inheritances that are fated with us." Jun Xiaorao nodded and said, "All right, but I'll always be here. I won't stay out of your affairs." "Thank you." Yi Guchen cupped his hands. The battle between Yi Guchen and Gu Xiaoyang was temporarily suspended. Many inheritance altars appeared on the saint's inheritance ground. However, these altars weren't accessible to just anyone. They were meant for those who were fated to obtain them. Some geniuses tried to force their way into the inheritance altars, but they were repelled by the divine light and sent flying. It seems that not everyone is qualified to obtain these inheritance altars. Many geniuses were disappointed. However, they didn't give up and continued searching. More and more geniuses gathered at the saint's inheritance ground. Yan Wushuang, Jiling, Princess Fengxi, Su Jiqing, and the other girls also entered the saint's inheritance ground. When they heard about Yi Guchen, Yan Wushuang, Jiling, Su Jiqing, and the others were worried. As for Princess Fengxi, she didn't know that Jian Kuei was Yi Guchen, so she didn't pay attention. At this stage, everyone was looking for an opportunity. Soon, Jian Jinghong found another inheritance altar that resonated with the sword mark between his eyebrows. He entered the altar without any hindrance. At the same time, a light barrier lit up around the altar, protecting Jian Jinghong's body. Obviously, this inheritance altar was different from the inheritance ruins from before. As long as one could enter, they could safely receive the inheritance without fear of being disturbed or taken away. Seeing Jian Jinghong's situation, the other geniuses were even more excited as they frantically searched for an inheritance altar that was suitable for them. This was their only chance to obtain the saint's inheritance. After that, 2 more sword sons of the Sword Dynasty obtained the saint's inheritance. They were Mu Xingzu and Kong Kong. The other sword sons weren't so lucky. This also made Yi Guchen understand that strength wasn't the only condition to obtain the inheritance. Opportunity and talent were both important conditions. On the other side, Yi Songyue, the witch, and Dao Wuming had also ascended the saint's inheritance altar. On the other hand, Gu Zun didn't resonate with any of the inheritance altars. Could it be that Gu Zun has the inheritance of the 7 kills saber saint, so he is unable to obtain the inheritance of other saints? Yi Guchen pondered. This should be the most likely possibility. Gu Zun didn't care. What happened next surprised many geniuses. Yan Wushuang had also stepped into a saint's inheritance altar. This was beyond the expectations of many geniuses. That young lady seems to be Princess Wushuang of the Swallow Cloud Dynasty? A princess of a mediocre dynasty can actually obtain the saint's legacy. Many of the Sky Prides sounded jealous. If it wasn't for the protective ability of the inheritance altar, Yan Wushuang's inheritance altar would have long been taken over by the other Sky Prides. In addition, Princess Fengxi had also found an inheritance altar, shocking everyone once again. Then it was Jun Xiaoyao's turn. However, the inheritance altar he had ascended wasn't an ordinary saint's altar, but a sage ruler's altar. Saint and sage ruler were only 2 words apart, but the difference was huge. He actually ascended the sage ruler's altar. As expected of young Master Xiaoyao. If it's him, it's not incomprehensible. Many people weren't too surprised that Jun Xiaoyao had ascended the sage ruler's altar. They could accept it. Next, Chu Xuanjin and Gu Xiaoyang also ascended the sage ruler's altar in front of everyone's shocked eyes. This is too terrifying. Chu Xuanjin has already taken away Jian Jinghong's saint's opportunity. Now he has ascended the sage ruler's altar. How powerful will he be? And Gu Xiaoyang is also quite powerful. If he ascends the sage ruler's altar, Jian Kuei will be in big trouble. Many people turned to look at Yi Guchen. They knew that the grudge between Yi Guchen and Gu Xiaoyang was absolutely irreconcilable. It could only be ended by the fall of one of them. Now that Gu Xiaoyang had ascended the sage ruler's altar, the one who was the most panicked was probably Yi Guchen. That was what many geniuses were thinking. Yi Guchen was very calm. He couldn't stop Gu Xiaoyang from obtaining the sage ruler's altar's inheritance. However, Yi Guqin could also look for the inheritance opportunity himself. He didn't hesitate and directly went to look for it. Many geniuses' eyes followed Yi Guqin. They wanted to know if Yi Guqin could obtain the inheritance. Because only by obtaining the sage ruler's altar's inheritance could he not be afraid of Gu Xiaoyang. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. Those geniuses who should have found the inheritance had already found it. Those geniuses who did not find any inheritances could only sigh helplessly. Duguqioma also didn't find the inheritance opportunity. What's going on? Could it be that because I obtained the Azura sage ruler's inheritance, I can't obtain the other sage ruler's inheritance? Duguqioma thought with a frown. This was the only possibility he could think of. Well, it's better if I can obtain it. If I can't, I'm not weaker than anyone. It's just that Duguqioma also looked at Yi Guqin. In these 7 days, Yi Guqin was also looking for the inheritance altar's inheritance opportunity. He wasn't like Duguqioma, who obtained the Azura sage ruler's inheritance. Logically speaking, he should be able to find a suitable inheritance. However, in the end, Yi Guqin didn't find it. Not to mention the sage ruler altar. Yi Guqin didn't even find an ordinary sage altar that could resonate with him. There were many geniuses who were paying attention to Yi Guqin. When they saw that Yi Guqin also couldn't find the inheritance altar, there were people who were watching a show, mocking and feeling pity. There were people who had all kinds of emotions. However, all the geniuses had the same prediction. If Yi Guqin couldn't find the inheritance opportunity, then the situation would be a little bad for him when he fought with Gu Xiaoyang. Why can't there be an inheritance altar that can resonate with me? Yi Guqin frowned tightly, thinking about the reason. On the other side, Gu Xiaoyang, who was in the inheritance altar, couldn't help but say when he saw this scene, "An ant will always be an ant. Even if he grows up for some reason, he's still an ant in his bones. It's impossible for him to be chosen by these former saints." Chu Xuanjin also said, "An inferior person wants to obtain the sage ruler's inheritance. It's simply a dream." Their words were sharp and could be said to be heartbreaking. However, Yi Guqin wasn't affected at all. In terms of talent, in the entire Nantian region, how many geniuses could be compared to him? In terms of strength, Yi Guqin even dared to compete with the 4 emperor's geniuses. Therefore, Gu Xiaoyang and Chu Xuanjin's words were a little ridiculous. But what's the reason? Yi Guqin thought. At this moment, he suddenly noticed that the golden lotus seed in his origin ring had been burning. Could it be? Yi Guqin suddenly thought of something. Chapter 1298. The North Underworld King Bei Miao had once told Yi Guqin, since he had obtained the golden lotus seed, he was qualified to receive the sage emperor's legacy. If a sage emperor had chosen a successor to inherit his legacy, what would he do? Then, would he still allow this successor to obtain the inheritance of other saints or sacred kings? Absolutely not. Because the sage emperor's legacy was the greatest opportunity in the sage emperor world. The sage emperor's legacy and the sage ruler's legacy had to be put aside. I see. I understand now. Since I have obtained the golden lotus seed, I am qualified to receive the sage emperor's legacy. What I need to do next is to find a way to obtain the sage emperor's legacy. Yi Guqin's eyes lit up as he made up his mind. There is a formation on this piece of land. If that's the case, I might be able to find some clues if I look for the center of the formation. Yi Guqin leaped into the air as he thought of this. He looked down at the ground as he searched for the center of the formation. What is Jiankui doing? I don't know. Is he crazy? If it were me, I would run as far as I can right now. It's been 7 or 8 days. Gu Xiaoyang and the others should have already digested the inheritance. If we wait for them to come out of seclusion, only death will await them, said one of the Sky Prides. Obviously, in the eyes of these Sky Prides, Yi Guqin's only chance of survival was to run as far as he could. Then, when the Sage Emperor world closed, he would find a way to escape. However, these Sky Prides did not know that Yi Guqin was not crazy or had given up on himself. He was searching for the greatest opportunity in the Sage Emperor world, the Sage Emperor's legacy. Found it. Yi Guqin's eyes lit up as he found the center of the formation. There was an ancient altar at the center of the formation. However, there was no divine light shining from it. It looked like it was abandoned, which was why no sky prides had noticed it. Yi Guchen landed on the altar at the center of the formation. His eyes narrowed as he discovered that there was a lotus on top of the altar. There was a hole in the lotus flower. Could that be? Yi Guchen's mind stirred. With a flash of his feet, he dashed forward. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he took out the golden lotus seed and stuffed it into the hole of the lotus. What is Jiankui doing? Many sky prides looked over in confusion. Ling Emoshu, Ling Maoyin, Han Lingxian, and the others were also very worried. They were afraid that Yi Guchen would be targeted by Gu Xiaoyang and the others and fall into danger. Boom! Just as the golden lotus seed fell into the lotus hole, the entire simple and unadorned altar suddenly shook and immediately lit up with a dazzling divine light. The divine light turned into a beam of light that almost lit up the entire holy imperial universe. Within the pillar of light, one could vaguely see the back of a figure. It was as if the figure had covered the heavens and the earth, causing the sun, moon, and stars to pale in comparison. That is, in the entire sacred domain's inheritance ground, all the sky prides were shocked. They felt as if millions of thunderbolts were roaring in their minds. That figure, even though it was just the back of the figure, seemed to have crushed the heavens and the earth, causing all the sky prides to feel suffocated. The sacred emperor. The immortal sacred emperor. All the sky prides screamed in their hearts. That figure was definitely the creator of the holy imperial universe. It's Jinkui. He caused this change. How could it be? How did he trigger the immortal sacred emperor's shadow? Many people looked at Yi Guchen in unison. They could not figure out how Yi Guchen could have caused such a change. At this moment, the indomitable figure of the Saint Emperor also spoke. After so many years, there is finally someone who is qualified to receive my inheritance. I will set up an arena. In 3 days, the only one standing on the arena will receive my inheritance. A golden lotus appeared in the void as soon as the voice of the figure finished speaking. The lotus flower slowly opened, and a majestic golden arena appeared within. The words of the sacred emperor's shadow were like a bomb, causing the entire sacred domain's inheritance ground to explode. In 3 days, anyone who could stand on the golden arena would receive the sacred emperor's inheritance. This caused all the sky pride's eyes to turn red, as if they were about to go crazy. That was the sacred emperor's inheritance. Everyone coveted it. Not to mention these sky prides, even a sage would find it difficult to remain calm in the face of such an opportunity. At this time, a golden pillar of light suddenly enveloped Yi Guchen's body. In the next instant, his body was directly transported to the golden arena. Thou art the one who activated the arena, and also the one who defended it. In 3 days, if you succeed in defending the arena, my inheritance will be yours. The sacred emperor's shadow spoke. So this is the so-called test. Yi Guchen took a deep breath, unable to calm down for a moment. He finally knew what the test Bei Miao had mentioned was. Using his own strength to block all the sky prides and successfully defend the arena. That was simply impossible. Huang Qianqiu, Chu Xuanjin, Gu Xiaoyang, and the others alone were enough to give Yi Guchen immense pressure, let alone a group of sky prides. If a group of sky prides were to fight together, even Di Haoyan would not be able to handle it. However, Yi Guchen did not look disappointed or fearful. Instead, there was a firm determination and surging battle intent in his eyes. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, Yi Guchen would definitely not give up. At this time, the divine light on the remaining inheritance altars gradually faded. This was because 7 or 8 days had already passed, and those sky prides who had obtained the inheritance had more or less succeeded in comprehending it. Gu Xiaoyang stepped out and saw the golden arena at a glance. He had also heard what the sacred emperor's shadow had said earlier. How did Jiankui obtain the opportunity to activate the sacred emperor's arena? But it doesn't matter. He will never obtain the sacred emperor's inheritance, Gu Xiaoyang muttered to himself. On the other side, Chu Xuanjin had also come out of seclusion, and his aura seemed to have become even more powerful. He also looked at the sacred emperor's arena that was floating in the void. The sacred emperor's inheritance was actually triggered by this kid. But in the end, it's all for naught, Chu Xuanjin sneered. So what if he triggered the sacred emperor's inheritance? The one who could obtain it in the end would be the biggest winner. In addition, Jun Xiaoyao, Muxingzu, Kong Kong, Yin Wushuang, Princess Fengxi, and so on. Almost all the Sky Prides who had obtained the inheritance had come out of seclusion. Many Sky Prides looked at the sacred emperor's arena in the void with burning eyes. 3 days. As long as they could survive 3 days, the one who stood on the arena in the end would be the winner. Those countless burning gazes seemed to want to melt Yi Guqin. No one could resist the temptation of the sacred emperor's inheritance. Under such circumstances, Yi Guqin was undoubtedly the most dangerous. And just as the Sky Prides were about to make a move, a cold and domineering figure stepped out of the void. The sacred emperor's inheritance can only belong to me. Anyone who stands in my way will die. His wild words shook the heavens and the earth. Chapter 1299. Who dares to say such words? Many geniuses' eyes were bloodshot with anger as they turned to look at the newcomer. But with a single glance, the anger on their faces immediately turned into seriousness and fear. The newcomer was a handsome young man with an intimidating aura. His purple hair fluttered in the air as his purple eyes glowed with divine light. Every step he took caused the air to tremble like a drum. His aura was like that of a god of war. It was domineering and intimidating. This person was one of the 4 sovereigns, Huang Qianqiu. The geniuses who were furious just a moment ago were now as silent as cicadas in winter. If other geniuses dared to say such arrogant words, they would have been cursed to death. However, no one dared to refute Huang Qianqiu's words. This was because Huang Qianqiu was one of the top geniuses in the Nantian region. He had the right to say such words. All the top geniuses of the sacred imperial world are here. What will happen next? Some of the geniuses wondered. All the geniuses of the sacred imperial world had gathered here. However, there were too many monks and too little gruel. The most precious opportunity to become a sacred emperor could only belong to one person. Huang Qianqiu lifted his gaze and looked at Yi Guqin, who was standing in the golden arena. His tone was indifferent as he continued. I didn't expect that the ant whose divine dwelling I defeated back then would be able to reach this stage. Yi Guqin's performance had indeed surprised Huang Qianqiu. He didn't expect Yi Guqin to not only reconstruct his spiritual abode, but also cultivate the leakless spiritual abode. This was a spiritual abode that even he hadn't cultivated. However, Huang Qianqiu didn't care too much. In the past, Yi Guqin was just an ant in his eyes. But now he had only become a slightly bigger ant. Huang Qianqiu's targets and opponents had always been the 4 sovereigns and Di Haotian. He didn't care about the others. Huang Qianqiu, times have changed. I have never forgotten about the grudge of destroying my spiritual abode. Yi Guqin said coldly. The grudge between him and Huang Qianqiu wasn't small. If Yi Guqin hadn't cultivated the 9 Tribulations Heart Sutra, it wouldn't have been easy for him to reconstruct his spiritual dwelling. It could be said that Huang Qianqiu had almost destroyed his martial arts path. To Yi Guqin, who had entered the martial way with the sword, this was a hatred that could not be resolved. Huang Qianqiu didn't want to let Yi Guqin off either. This was because he still wanted to dig out Yi Guqin's ultimate sword domain technique. The surrounding Sky Prides were speechless at the sight of the 2 men who were at loggerheads. Does this Jian Kuei think he doesn't have enough enemies? That's right. He provoked Gu Xiaoyang and Chu Xuanjin. And now he's provoking Huang Qianqiu. Even if he's courting death, this isn't the right way, right? Many people thought that Yi Guqin was crazy. Jian Jinghong and the others also had grave expressions on their faces. This was because the pressure that Huang Qianqiu gave them was simply too great. Humph, no matter what, only I, Huang Qianqiu, can have the opportunity of the sacred emperor. If you get down here voluntarily, you can live a little longer, Huang Qianqiu said coldly. Haha. Whoever wants the opportunity of the sacred emperor can come up here. I'll take it all. Yi Guqin raised the 9-dragon thunder prison and stabbed it into the arena. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and he looked arrogant. It was as if one man could hold the pass against 10,000 men. The atmosphere in the sacred emperor's inheritance was tense because of Yi Guqin's words. If one person made a move, it would be enough to trigger the entire situation. At the same time, there was also a huge uproar outside the sacred emperor world. When Yi Guqin had killed the 4 young star lords, it had already caused a huge commotion outside the sacred emperor world. The 7th star lord of the Starry Sword Pavilion, and the others looked even colder. The death of the 4 young star lords had humiliated the Starry Sword Pavilion. However, it was still not as great as the shock caused by the appearance of the sacred emperor's inheritance. It really is the sacred emperor's inheritance. Jiankui can actually open the opportunity of the sacred emperor. So what if he opens the opportunity of the sacred emperor? In the end, it will only benefit someone else. Do you think Jiankui can hold on to the opportunity of the sacred emperor? How is that possible? Even if you use your ass to think, you know that even if Jiankui went up alone, it would be enough to make Jiankui suffer, let alone a group of geniuses. That's true. I think that if Jiankui is greedy and wants to monopolize the opportunity of the sacred emperor, he will die in the arena. Many discussions broke out outside the sacred emperor world. After all, it was the first time that the sacred emperor's inheritance had appeared. People from all the major forces hoped that their disciples could obtain the sacred emperor's inheritance. However, many people also knew that only the top few had a chance of obtaining the sacred emperor's inheritance. Gu Xiaoyang, the reputation of the Starry Sword Pavilion depends on you. The 7th star lord mumbled to himself. The 4 star lords were all dead, and their only hope was on Gu Xiaoyang. Jiankui, you will pay the price. The 7th star lord said coldly. The Starry Sword Pavilion couldn't do anything due to the rules of the battlefield of geniuses. However, it was easy for an overlord-level force to take revenge on Yi Guqin. Furthermore, the Luofu Sword Pavilion, Imperial Heaven Sword Pavilion, and other forces also hoped that Jun Xiaoyao, Huang Qianqiu, and the others could obtain the sacred emperor's inheritance. Hang in there. Confuzi, Wu Hongyan, and all the cultivators of the Sword Dynasty prayed in their hearts. They prayed that Yi Guqin, the genius of the dynasty, could create an unprecedented miracle. A miracle that could overwhelm all the geniuses of overlord-level forces. Outside the sacred emperor world, countless people were waiting to see what would happen. The atmosphere in the sacred emperor's inheritance was extremely tense. Finally, someone moved. It was none other than Gu Zun. He had long wanted to fight Yi Guqin to solve the doubts in his heart. Now that he had the chance, he naturally couldn't help but make a move. Yi Guqin frowned slightly when he saw this. It wasn't that he was afraid of Gu Zun, but that his biggest opponents were Gu Xiaoyang, Huang Qianqiu, and the others. Although he had a grudge with Gu Zun, he wasn't in a hurry. 7 Killing Saber Demon has made his move. Let's go. The eyes of some geniuses flickered when they saw Gu Zun make his move. However, just as Gu Zun was about to make his move, a beam of golden spear light pierced towards Gu Zun. Gu Zun swung the 7 Killing Saber horizontally and extinguished the spear light. Zhao Shinkong? Gu Zun frowned when he saw the person who attacked with the spear. He wasn't the only one. Everyone was stunned. Why was Zhao Shinkong stopping Gu Zun? Didn't he want the sacred emperor's inheritance? I have no way of repaying the debt of my life. Anyone who wants to step onto the arena will have to pass through me first. Zhao Shinkong exuded a heroic aura as his dragon-patterned armor flowed with luster. He held the Daoyuo golden spear in his hand and looked imposing. He was doing this to repay the debt of gratitude. Hee, you're really loyal. Since that's the case, I'll go too. The witch in a black dress smiled as she twisted her hips. She was also somewhat envious of the sacred emperor's inheritance. Chapter 1300. Zhao Shinkong's face darkened. He could barely hold off a prime sovereign, but it was almost impossible with the addition of the witch of the demonic sect. At this moment, a beautiful figure in a white dress stood in front of Wan. It was Yi Tsangyue. Sister Tsangyue, you have nothing to do with Jiankui. Why are you meddling in other people's business? Wan'er's smile disappeared. I just don't want you to get the sacred emperor's inheritance. Yi Tsangyue said with a flash in her eyes. Excuse. Won or frowned. At this moment, Chu Xuanjin moved and stepped out, wanting to rush to the golden arena. Seeing Chu Xuanjin make a move, many geniuses were shocked. He was a king of geniuses. Not everyone dared to stop him. Jian Jinghong and the others gritted their teeth and wanted to stop him. At this moment, a white-robed figure stood in front of Chu Xuanjin again. Jun Xiaoyao. Chu Xuanjin raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect Jun Xiaoyao to stop him at this critical moment. The sacred emperor's inheritance is not fated with you, Jun Xiaoyao said with a faint smile. Do you know that if you delay me, you won't be able to get the sacred emperor's inheritance? In the end, you will only benefit Jiankui. Chu Xuanjin's face was cold. So what? I owe him a favor anyway, Jun Xiaoyao said indifferently. You. Chu Xuanjin's face turned pale. He knew that with Jun Xiaoyao blocking him, it would be very difficult for him to challenge Yi Guqin in the golden arena. Even if he wasn't afraid of Jun Xiaoyao, it was almost impossible for him to completely suppress him. Right now, all the Sky Prides were dumbfounded. 3 geniuses wanted to fight Yi Guqin, but they were stopped by the other 3 geniuses. None of the people present had expected such a situation. Haha, Jiankui is really popular. But now, it seems that no one owes Jiankui a favor. Young Master Fuxing, Dao Wuming, smiled faintly and stepped out. He was also one of the top 10 young masters, and had extraordinary combat strength. What Dao Wuming said was indeed true. From the looks of it now, no one had received any favors from Yi Guqin. The eyes of Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and Su Jiqing flashed. They knew that they might not be able to stop Dao Wuming, but even delaying him for a moment was good enough. Just as Dao Wuming was about to attack, another azure-robed figure stood in front of Dao Wuming. It was Chen Qingxiao, who was being controlled by Duguqioma. Whoosh. The surrounding Sky Prides were in an uproar. Everyone looked at Duguqioma at the same time. What did it mean for Chen Qingxiao to stand in front of Dao Wuming? It meant that Dugu begged the devil to stop Dao Wuming. But why was that? Everyone's eyes were filled with doubt. Seeing this, Huang Qianqiu's face turned even colder. He turned to Dugu for help. It was as if he was looking at a dead person. Although Chen Qingxiao and Huang Qianqiu did not have much of a relationship, they were both from the Imperial Heaven Sword Pavilion. Huang Qianqiu was unhappy that Chen Qingxiao was being controlled like a puppet. Duguqioma, why did you attack? Dao Wuming frowned. Although Chen Qingxiao's strength was slightly weaker than the 10 great young masters, he was still a Sky Pride on the Dragon Phoenix list. It was impossible for him to defeat Dao Wuming, but delaying him for a while was still doable. No reason. Don't even think about getting a share of the Sage Emperor's inheritance, Duguqioma said coldly. It was not time for him to reveal that he was Yi Guqin's clone, because he himself was Yi Guqin's greatest trump card. And this trump card had to be used against Di Haotian. Therefore, he could not reveal it for the time being, in case Di Haotian was alerted and made preparations in advance. Troublesome. Dao Wuming shook his head slightly unhappy. Seeing that the 4 Sky Prides were stopped, all the Sky Prides were stunned. Did the heavens want Yi Guqin to obtain the Sage Emperor's inheritance? The Sage Emperor's inheritance can only be obtained by me. Huang Qianqiu stepped forward, his aura surging wildly. The might of the 8th level of the Divine Dwelling Realm was terrifying. Huang Qianqiu has finally attacked. Who dares to stop him? Yeah, he's a Sky Pride of the 4 Emperors. He's even stronger than the 10 great young masters. Didn't Huang Qianqiu say that anyone who tries to stop him will die? Seeing that Huang Qianqiu had attacked, the Sky Prides felt helpless. It was impossible for them to snatch the Sage Emperor's inheritance from Huang Qianqiu. Seeing that no one dared to stop him, Huang Qianqiu's lips curled up. At that moment, a pitch-black sword ray pierced through the air. Who's there? Huang Qianqiu's face darkened. With a flick of his hand, the heaven-shattering palm formed and shot forward. Amidst the violent collision, a white-haired, black-robed figure stood in front of Huang Qianqiu, blocking him. A cold, dark golden demonic eye stared emotionlessly at Huang Qianqiu. This Duguqioma actually dared to attack? He must be crazy. Although he's powerful, his opponent is Huang Qianqiu. Many Sky Prides were shocked. Huang Qianqiu was not a nobody that could block him. If he wasn't careful, he might even lose his life. What? Chilmo. Not far away, Princess Luo Ho bit her lip. This was the first time she had doubts. However, Princess Luo Ho believed that Dugu Qiuma wanted to defeat Huang Qianqiu before fighting for the Sage Emperor's inheritance. But was Huang Qianqiu that easy to defeat? Huang Qianqiu looked at Dugu Qiuma as if he was looking at a dead man. You really can't wait to die? I haven't settled the score with you for Chen Qingxiao. Huang Qianqiu said coldly. Die? With just you? Dugu Qiuma's lips curled into a cold smile. Huang Qianqiu might be powerful, but Dugu Qiuma was no pushover either. Hearing Dugu Qiuma's words, the Sky Pride swallowed hard. Huang Qianqiu was already arrogant enough, but they didn't expect Dugu Qiuma to be even more arrogant. Ha ha ha, how long has it been since someone dared to say something like that to my face? Good, very good. Since that's the case, I'll kill you first before killing Jiankui. Huang Qianqiu was really angry. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his arm. A domineering giant sword appeared in his hand. The giant sword was single-edged like a machete, exuding the power of desolation and destruction. It was Huang Qianqiu's calamity divine weapon, the desolate god slash. Die. Huang Qianqiu slashed with his sword. Dugu Qiuma also took out the god devourer sword to counterattack. The two of them collided like Mars crashing into Earth, and a huge battle ensued. Seeing the Sky Prides being blocked one by one, the remaining Sky Prides were hesitant. After all, Jian Jinghong and the other Sword Sons were still there. They could also block Huang Qianqiu. Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, Su Jiqing, and the rest heaved a sigh of relief as they watched the battle. It seemed like Yi Guqin was temporarily out of danger. However, at that moment, Gu Xiaoyang finally made his move. Let's see who else wants to stop me. Gu Xiaoyang said coldly. Jian Jinghong and the rest tensed up. They had yet to recover from their injuries, and they could still block the other Sky Prides. However, with Gu Xiaoyang's strength, it would be difficult for them to block him. You guys don't have to stop him. Just nice, let me finish him myself. In the golden arena, Yi Guqin stood with his hands behind his back and said nonchalantly. Hearing Yi Guqin's words, Jian Jinghong and the rest didn't make a move. Gu Xiaoyang took a deep look at Yi Guqin. Then he stepped into the air and landed on the arena. The two of them faced each other, and the atmosphere was tense. Who exactly are you? Gu Xiaoyang's eyes narrowed as he asked. Of course, he didn't think that Yi Guqin would answer him. However, to Gu Xiaoyang's surprise, Yi Guqin chuckled. Oh, so you really want to know? Chapter 1301. Hearing Yi Guqin's words, Gu Xiaoyang's eyes were filled with surprise. Could it be that the mysterious Jian Kui in front of him, who was wearing a ghost mask, had another identity? Gu Xiaoyang was not the only one who heard Yi Guqin's words. The other geniuses in the Land of Saints' inheritance also heard it. Their eyes were also focused on him, and their ears were pricked up. In fact, they were also very curious about the true identity of this Jian Kui from the Sword Dynasty. Is he going to announce his identity? Yan Wushuang and Ji Ling clenched their hands in front of their chests, their hearts pounding. If Yi Guqin's true identity was revealed, it would definitely cause a huge commotion and shock the entire Nantian region. This was no small matter. Mu Xingzu and Su Zihao, who knew Yi Guqin's true identity, were also nervous. Master, are you finally going to reveal your true identity? Mu Xingzu was also nervous. This meant that Yi Guqin would have to bear great danger in the future. But at this point, Yi Guqin could no longer hide it. He needed to go all out to deal with Gu Xiaoyang, and could no longer hide it. Moreover, as long as he could obtain the Saint Emperor's inheritance, Yi Guqin would be protected by Beimao, the Lord of the North Underworld. Furthermore, there was also the Luofu Sword Pavilion behind Jun Xiaoyao. Yi Guqin believed that the Luofu Sword Pavilion would not stay out of the matter after he revealed his strength. Jun Xiaoyao would also do his best to get the Luofu Sword Pavilion to help Yi Guqin. Therefore, Yi Guqin did not make this decision on a whim. He made this decision after careful consideration. Moreover, Yi Guqin had had enough of the days of hiding his identity. From now on, he he would reveal his true identity to the world. Hee Jinkui, you don't have to hide it. I won't be surprised no matter what your identity is, Gu Xiaoyang said calmly, standing with his hands behind his back. He had the backing of the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion, so he did have the right to say such words. Even if this Jinkui was from one of the three hidden forces, Gu Xiaoyang wouldn't be surprised. However, Gu Xiaoyang was wrong. Yi Guqin did not answer. Instead, he took a step forward. The nine-dragon lightning prison sword was in his hand. Zhan Fengzhan when Tu Han. Yi Guqin's tone was calm as he recited the poem. He slowly raised his other hand and placed it on the ghost mask on his face. Who dares to drink with me? Who dares to stop me? Yi Guqin's palm pressed against the ghost mask and took it off inch by inch. Sword out. Return to life. Yi Guqin's footsteps came to a stop. He took off the grimace mask in his hand along with the leather mask. You're not returning him. With that last sentence, Yi Guqin shook his hand. The grimace mask and the leather mask were reduced to dust. A cold and handsome face appeared in everyone's eyes. Only I, Yi Guqin, am heaven and earth. Yi Guqin's sword was pointed at the sky. His black hair danced in the wind. His aura shook the heavens and earth, shocking the universe. Only I, heaven and earth. Yi Guqin of the sword sect. His words were like thunder, piercing through the heavens and shaking everyone's ears. Shock. Shock. Absolute shock. Within the sacred imperial world, all the sky prides were shocked speechless. Outside the sacred imperial world, countless forces were dead silent. Yi Guqin? Jiankui of the Sword Dynasty is Yi Guqin? Yi Guqin, is he the Yi Guqin who borrowed a sword from the heavens and severely injured Di Haotian in the Tianhuang Plains? How is that possible? Isn't he dead? Why is he still alive? What the hell? Not only is Yi Guqin not dead, but he has also become Jiankui of the Sword Dynasty? Within the sacred imperial world, all the sky prides were shocked. They could not believe their eyes. It had only been slightly more than a year since the incident at the Tianhuang Plains. Therefore, the name Yi Guqin had not been forgotten. Therefore, when Yi Guqin said his real name, many sky prides immediately remembered. Yi Guqin. Hearing this name, Yan Wushuang's tears flowed down. The young man who had suffered a crushing defeat at the Tianhuang Plains had concealed his identity for a year. Finally, at this moment, he shone brightly once again. The name Yi Guqin had finally reappeared in the world. Junior brother Yi. Jiling was also very excited. On the other side, Princess Phoenix Dawn's head was buzzing. She could not believe her eyes. Jiankui is Yi Guqin. It's really him. Princess Phoenix Dawn covered her red lips. She could not describe the feeling in her heart. Once again, she recalled why Jiankui from the Sword Dynasty had appeared when the Phoenix Nye Dynasty had attacked the Swallow Cloud Dynasty. Now she finally understood. Jiankui was Yi Guqin. Not only was he not dead, but he was even stronger. He was the brightest star in the sacred imperial world. The sky prides who were in the midst of fighting stopped for a moment. Zhao Shinkong, Zhao Xiaodi, and the others were all in disbelief. Gu Zun, on the other hand, was glaring at Yi Guqin. A violent killing intent erupted from him uncontrollably. Yi Guqin, it's really him. Gu Zun's hand trembled. It was not fear or anger. It was excitement. The excitement of finally meeting a worthy opponent. The excitement of being able to personally put an end to this. There was no doubt about it. Based on that feeling, Gu Zun knew that it was indeed Yi Guqin. It could not be someone else in disguise. He's still alive? Dao Wuming was also shocked. He did not expect this at all. He's Yi Guqin from the sword sect who severely injured Di Haotian? One or the witch was also shocked. This was also beyond her expectations. She found it unbelievable. As for Yi Songyue, her heart trembled. She finally understood why she had such a special feeling when she saw Jiankui. The truth was now revealed. It's you. Yi Songyue was also in a complicated mood. Brother Yi. No wonder I felt a little familiar. Jun Xiaoya was also surprised, but soon a smile appeared on his face. Yi Guqin had always been someone he admired. Jun Xiaoyao's biggest regret was that he could not go to the Tianhuang Plain to help. Now he could finally make up for it. He's Yi Guchen, the one who injured senior brother Di Haotian? Chu Xuanzhen frowned. In his heart, Di Haotian had always been a benchmark. In the entire Nantian region, no one could threaten Di Haotian's position. Back then, when Chu Xuanzhen heard that Di Haotian was injured, he could not even believe it. Someone could actually injure Di Haotian? Now that Yi Guchen's real identity was exposed, Chu Xuanzhen still could not accept it. The person who injured Di Haotian was Jian Kuei from the Sword Dynasty, whom he had underestimated. Yi Guchen, what did you do to injure senior brother Haotian? Chu Xuanzhen's expression was cold. He thought that he could take care of Yi Guchen without Di Haotian's help. In addition, Huang Qianqiu was also very surprised. Yi Guchen, the one who injured Di Haotian, humph. Huang Qianqiu's expression was indifferent. Du Guqiu did not think there was anything wrong with Yi Guchen's identity being exposed. He was Yi Guchen's hidden trump card, which had not been used yet. At this moment, in the sacred imperial realm, all the geniuses were shocked beyond words. However, the shock of all the geniuses added together could not compare to the shock in Gu Xiaoyang's heart. Yi Guchen, how could it be you? Chapter 1302. Gu Xiaoyang didn't dare to believe his eyes, nor did he dare to believe his ears. A dead person, a small character that he had almost forgotten, had actually appeared in front of him, alive and well. If it was anyone else, they would feel as if they had seen a ghost. Gu Xiaoyang had guessed a lot about Jian Kuei's identity. He even believed that the person behind the sword chief might be a prodigy from a hidden force. Now that the truth was out, Gu Xiaoyang didn't dare to believe it. Are you shocked? Surprised? Astonished? I've said it before. Even the heavens can't take Yi Guchen's life. Yi Guchen raised his eyebrows with a cold expression. He had survived the Tianhuang Plains and became even stronger. Now he was fighting for revenge. You're still alive after taking the 9 deaths no regrets pill. What kind of dog's hit luck do you have? Gu Xiaoyang's expression was very ugly. His face was ashen, and his body was trembling with anger. When he thought about how Yi Guchen was still alive and even mocking him behind his mask, Gu Xiaoyang felt his anger burning. However, Gu Xiaoyang was still a shrewd person after all. He took a deep breath and suppressed the waves in his heart. He said coldly, although I don't know what kind of dog's hit luck you have, it doesn't matter. Since you're lucky enough to survive, then today I, Gu Xiaoyang, will cut off your path of survival once again. Gu Xiaoyang was still confident in dealing with Yi Guchen. Heh, is that so? I've read that poem to someone before. Yi Guchen smiled coldly. Who? Gu Xiaoyang said indifferently. Xia Yubing, and she is already dead. Yi Guchen said indifferently. In other words, Gu Xiaoyang would follow in Xia Yubing's footsteps. It was time to put an end to the karma of stealing his sword embryo. Comparing me to Xia Yubing? You're too naive. Gu Xiaoyang raised his hand, and the 7-star phantom sword vibrated with powerful fluctuations. In the past, Xia Yubing was like an insurmountable mountain in my eyes. But now, she has already turned into dust. As for you, you are the same. Yi Guchen took a step forward, his aura gushing out. His eyes were burning with the flames of vengeance. Since the beginning of the Saint Origin dynasty, when had Yi Guchen ever feared anyone? Gu Xiaoyang couldn't, Huang Qianqiu couldn't, and neither could Di Haotian. Come, let's fight. Let's settle this once and for all. The aura of Yi Guchen's 4th layer of the leakless divine palace erupted. Sword intent surged, and the flames of war soared to the heavens. Today, I will end your life. Gu Xiaoyang also activated the power of his divine dwelling. Although it was only a flawless divine dwelling, the cultivation of the 7th layer of the divine dwelling madly gushed out. Endless starlight enveloped Gu Xiaoyang's body, making him look like a divine king of the stars. His aura shook the entire universe. On one side was Yi Guchen, who had revealed his identity again. Jian Kuei of the Sword Dynasty, who was born with the aptitude of a saint and had once seriously injured Di Haotian. On the other side was one of the 10 great Gongzi, the seed of the Starry Sword Pavilion, Gu Xiaoyang. Many people knew about the enmity between the two of them. Therefore, All the geniuses in the Sacred Emperor world were paying close attention to this fated battle. At this moment, outside the Saint Emperor world, a great uproar had been set off because of Yi Guqin's identity. So Jiankui is Yi Guqin. The Seven-Star Lord's aura trembled. He was obviously shocked. Then his cold gaze fell on the Sword Dynasty's side. Sword Dynasty, you, well done. The Seven-Star Lord's tone was cold. Obviously, he believed that the Sword Dynasty was shielding Yi Guqin. This Duga Wubai is Yi Guqin? Did you know? Confuzi asked Wu Hongyan in shock. I didn't know. Did any of you know? Wu Hongyan asked. We didn't know either. The heaven prides of the Sword Dynasty shook their heads. Of course, they really didn't know. However, Confuzi and Wu Hongyan had known about Yi Guqin's identity for a long time. However, they couldn't let the Starry Sword Pavilion have any evidence against them at this moment. After all, the Sword Dynasty was still under a lot of pressure when facing the Starry Sword Pavilion. The Seven-Star Lord's aura was a bit unstable. Obviously, he was quite angry. Seven-Star Lord, the battle between heaven prides hasn't ended yet. Is the Starry Sword Pavilion already blaming us? Elder Qingsong of the Luofu Sword Pavilion sneered. In fact, Elder Qingsong was also very surprised. That was because he had heard more than once from Jun Xiaorao that Yi Guqin was a talent with great potential. If that's the case, should the Luofu Sword Pavilion protect Yi Guqin and take him in? Elder Qingsong was seriously thinking. However, the battle between Yi Guqin and Gu Xiaoyang had just begun. The outcome was still uncertain. If Yi Guqin was defeated in the end, then there was nothing to think about. However, rumor has it that the immemorial demonic sword, God Devourer, has fallen into his hands. That's a bit troublesome. Elder Qingsong pondered. Elder Qingsong and the Seventh-Star Lord weren't the only ones thinking about the immemorial demonic sword. The other three sects and sword pavilions were also thinking about the immemorial demonic sword. After all, the God Devourer was a famed immemorial sword. Even if it was a famed sword on the Earth ranking, it was still enough to tempt the Overlord forces. Many forces had already decided to interrogate Yi Guqin after the battle at the Sacred Emperor Realm, if he could survive. Yi Guqin, if Manlu knows that you're still alive, he'll be very happy. On the side of the Swallow Cloud Dynasty, Yanchang's expression was complicated. He thought that Feng Manlu had already fallen. At this moment, all the forces and geniuses both inside and outside the Sacred Emperor Realm were looking at the Golden Arena. The battle between Yi Guqin and Gu Xiaoyang could be said to be the most eye-catching battle. Everyone was curious. Would Yi Guqin succeed in his revenge? Or would Gu Xiaoyang continue to stand at the top? Kill. On the Golden Arena in the void, Yi Guqin used the Divine Movement secret skill and appeared in a flash. Murderous roars burst out from his mouth as three sword radiances swept out. It was the three unique holy swords. Daoyuo Astral Seal. Gu Xiaoyang raised his hand and the stellar genuine qi surged. It turned into a dazzling astral seal and pressed down. Rumble. The sword radiances and the astral seal collided and burst out waves. Three unique combinations. Moon falling, star sinking, vast yang break. Yi Guqin's three sword radiances merged into one, and the dazzling sword radiance cut through the universe. I, Gu Xiaoyang, will tell you that an ant will always be an ant. Don't even think about overturning the heavens. Gu Xiaoyang raised the 7 stars mysterious god in his hand, and the stellar sword qi burst out. Falling star sacred sword. The sword radiance slashed down and crashed down on Yi Guqin's sword move. Overturning the heavens? Who can represent the heavens? You. You can't represent the heavens. Even if you are the heavens, I will cut through the heavens and shatter the universe. Yi Guqin's black hair fluttered in the wind as the piercingly cold and surging sword qi accompanied his words. Azura Sword Way, Azura Blood C 18 levels. Yi Guqin's eyes were instantly swallowed by the color of blood. The sword qi turned into a sea of blood and surged out. 18 levels of blood prison rose from the ground. After Yi Guqin regained his identity, he could finally use his previous moves without any scruples. How terrifying would Yi Guqin be when he went all out? No one knew. Perhaps not even Yi Guqin himself. Chapter 1303. For a long time, Yi Guqin had been hiding his identity, so he rarely used some of his methods. Or perhaps he had never used them at all. For example, the 108,000 sword souls and reincarnation sword lotus. For example, the 1,000 deities tribulation sword technique and the innate sword embryo. Any one of these techniques could easily expose Yi Guqin's identity. But now that Yi Guqin's identity had been exposed, he no longer had to worry about anything. He could naturally display his full strength. Seeing Yi Guqin display the Azura sword principle, Gu Xiaoyang felt as if he had returned to the Tianhuang plains. Gu Xiaoyang had also fought a great battle with Yi Guqin in the Tianhuang plains. That battle was Gu Xiaoyang's humiliation. He had bullied the weak and in the end, Yi Guqin had taken back the innate sword embryo. That battle had also caused Gu Xiaoyang's reputation to plummet, and he was ridiculed by many people. Thinking of all the humiliation he had suffered, Gu Xiaoyang's heart surged with anger. With a bone-chilling look in his eyes, he said, "Yi Guqin, today I will use your blood to wash away my humiliation." Gu Xiaoyang's seventh heaven of the divine dwelling realm gushed out. Sword qi crisscrossed the void and turned into a dazzling galaxy. Gu Xiaoyang also displayed the sword domain of the star's sword principle. Starry river illuminating the 9 heavens. Endless starlight fell from the void and turned into countless sword qi that collided with Yi Guqin's Azura blood sea. In an instant, the sword qi vibrated and the collision of the 2 domains was so powerful that it was as if 2 continents had collided. Rumble. Rumbling roars shook the 9 heavens like thunder. Yi Guqin die. Gu Xiaoyang held the 7-star transformations god in his hand, his heart filled with murderous intent. He swore in his heart that no matter what price he had to pay, he would kill Yi Guqin on the sacred emperor arena. Damn it, it's you. Yi Guqin also gave tit for tat, his momentum not weak in the slightest. The 2 figures charged towards each other. After more than a year, the 2 of them finally began their fated battle on the Saint Emperor arena once again. The 9-dragon thunder prison collided with the 7-star illusion god sword, and the violent vibrations turned into environmental waves that swept out. Yi Guqin and Gu Xiaoyang both unleashed their full strength, their killing intent surging. Yi Guqin's sword swung out in a graceful manner. 10 times the amount of true qi surged out. And with the support of the Azura sword Dao's blood-colored sword qi, it was incomparably powerful. As for Gu Xiaoyang, he was like the divine king of the stars. Endless starlight transformed into sword qi that fell down like rain. The 2 of them were both outstanding individuals, and as they clashed, they attracted the attention of everyone. Everyone wanted to know who would emerge victorious. Astral Emperor Seal. With a sword in one hand, Gu Xiaoyang fought against Yi Guqin while raising his other hand. Surging star true qi rolled and surged in his palm, finally transforming into a giant silver seal. This was a sealing technique that was even more powerful than the great astral seal, the Astral Emperor Seal. Suppress. As Gu Xiaoyang's word fell, the Astral Emperor Seal was like a silver mountain, suppressing Yi Guqin. This little trick is not worth mentioning. Yi Guqin's eyes lit up. The ancient god power in his body surged and gathered in his left hand. Yi Guqin pressed out with his hand as well. The ancient god power surged and condensed into a giant golden seal. It was the ancient god king seal. The golden ancient god king seal and the silver astral emperor seal collided with each other, producing a buzzing sound that shook the heavens. It was like 2 divine mountains had collided. Rocks flew through the air, and dust flew everywhere. Both of them were sent flying by the impact, but in an instant, they turned around and fought again. 1,000-star pilgrimage sword technique. Gu Xiaoyang's aura surged. The star sword Dao combined with the emperor-level sword technique, and the power of the 1,000-star pilgrimage sword technique increased exponentially. In the void around him, tens of thousands of starlight turned into sword qi and froze in the void. Go. Gu Xiaoyang stabbed out with the 7-star transformations. Tens of thousands of starlight sword qi shot out at the same time like a meteor shower. In the face of Gu Xiaoyang's dense and violent attacks, Yi Guqin's expression was calm. He stretched out his hand and grasped the void. It was as if he had turned on a switch, and many sword souls in his body surged out. Sword Sect Unique Skill, 108,000 Swords. Yi Guqin let out a long roar. His black hair fluttered, and 108,000 sword souls surged out of his body. The sword souls that had not been used for a long time finally appeared in the world again. The 108,000 sword souls scattered in all directions and clashed with Gu Xiaoyang's sacred star sword technique. Yi Guqin took the opportunity to perform the divine movement secret skill, and his body rushed out like lightning. 8 divinatory diagrams appeared around him at the same time. 8 extremities reincarnation, destruction of heaven and earth. Yi Guqin did not hold back or test the waters. He directly performed his unique skill, wanting to kill Gu Xiaoyang as soon as possible. This fluctuation. Gu Xiaoyang's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly performed his unique defensive skill. Heavenly Star Fivefold Light Shield. Gu Xiaoyang formed a seal with one hand. His star genuine energy surged and condensed into a huge shield that was 9 feet tall, blocking in front of him. At this moment, Yi Guqin had performed his unique skill. The 8 divinatory diagrams shattered at the same time. 8 different sword energies of different attributes merged and formed a wheel of sword energies with a destructive aura. It pierced through the void and blasted toward Gu Xiaoyang. Boom! The wheel of sword energies collided with the huge silver shield, and an earth-shattering sound burst out. The violent impact of the sword energies directly shattered the shield. Gu Xiaoyang's expression changed, and he hurriedly blocked with his sword. Bang! With another sound, Gu Xiaoyang's body retreated rapidly. His arms trembled violently, and he spat out a small mouthful of blood. Apparently he was injured. Gu Xiaoyang is injured. I didn't expect Gu Xiaoyang to be the first to be injured. The group of Sky Prides who were watching the battle cried out in surprise. Hearing the discussion around him, Gu Xiaoyang's face darkened. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with one hand and looked coldly at Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin's strength was somewhat beyond Gu Xiaoyang's expectations. Again. Unique skill of the sword faction, Firmament Sword Seal. Gu Xiaoyang's aura surged even more violently. He wanted to get back at Yi Guqin. He raised his sword, and sword energies gushed out. The sky trembled, and the surging sword energies finally turned into a sky blue sword seal. Gu Xiaoyang was also a 9th generation sword faction echelon, and he also had more than one unique skill of the sword faction. Just in time. Unique skill of the sword faction, Reincarnation Sword Lotus. Yi Guqin activated the surging genuine energy of the leakless divine palace. He raised his hand and countless sword energies gathered on his palm like rivers flowing into the sea, and finally turned into a golden sword lotus. After a long time, Yi Guqin finally displayed the unique skill of the sword faction again. Most importantly, it wasn't an incomplete version of the Reincarnation Sword Lotus, but a complete Reincarnation Sword Lotus with 360 leaves. Previously, even the incomplete Reincarnation Sword Lotus could be considered Yi Guqin's trump card. Now that the complete version of the Reincarnation Sword Lotus was displayed, it was imaginable how powerful it would be. Go! Yi Guqin threw out the Reincarnation Sword Lotus. The Reincarnation Sword Lotus drew a dazzling arc of light and collided with Gu Xiaoyang's Firmament Sword Seal. For a moment, the world trembled. Chapter 1304. Yi Guqin and Gu Xiaoyang were both members of the 9th generation of the Sword Sect. At that moment, they were also using the ultimate techniques of the Sword Sect. The Reincarnation Sword Lotus was beautiful, but it also carried fatal danger and murderous intent. The firmament sword print was majestic, as if it could suppress the heavens. The two ultimate techniques of the Sword Sect collided, and the sound shook the heavens and earth. It was as if the entire sacred imperial world was trembling. Violent shockwaves swept out. Apart from a few Sky Prides who were able to watch the battle from the Golden Arena, the rest of the Sky Prides were thrown far away by the shockwaves. Their blood was boiling in their chests. So powerful. Is this the clash of the top Sky Prides? I can't even withstand the shockwaves. One of the Sky Prides was terrified. No one was surprised by Gu Xiaoyang's strength. After all, he was from an overlord force and had received the best training since he was young. However, Yi Guqin was a Sky Pride who rose from a low-level dynasty. He was strong enough to fight against many sky prides from overlords. Many sky prides from other dynasties were impressed by his perseverance. At that moment, everyone's attention was focused on the center of the smoke. Yi Guqin and Gu Xiaoyang both had blood flowing down from the corners of their mouths. They didn't stop their attacks and continued to fight against each other. There was no way out for them in this battle. Either you die, or I die. Blood feud would not end until death. Let's try this move again. Gu Xiaoyang raised his sword, and a crimson sword energy of extreme yang surged out. Ultimate technique of the sword sect, sun-slashing brilliant void sword aura. That was another ultimate technique of the sword sect that Gu Xiaoyang knew. It was very powerful and seemed to be able to break the sun. Ultimate technique of the sword sect? I have more. Yi Guqin knew 3 ultimate techniques of the sword sect, and was not any weaker than Gu Xiaoyang. He pointed his sword at the sky and pointed at the ground. Heaven and earth merged, and yin and yang gathered together. It was as if he had gathered the power of heaven and earth into his sword. It was the sacred sword of heaven and earth. The golden sword radiance stood between heaven and earth and swept out. That powerful fluctuation was not any weaker than Gu Xiaoyang's sun-slashing brilliant void sword aura. The golden sword ray and the crimson sword ray collided fiercely, causing the void to explode and vibrate. Sword chi was in a frenzy, and even the clouds in the sky were scattered. Yi Guqin retreated, but he was still hurt by the scorching sword chi. Blood flowed from the web between his thumb and forefinger, and there were scorched marks on his arm. Of course, Gu Xiaoyang wasn't in a good condition either. There was a sword wound on his shoulder that was so deep that his bones could be seen. You have another sword faction loss technique? Gu Xiaoyang's eyes were as cold as ice. Because he had only seen Yi's sword soul and reincarnation sword lotus. I'm no longer the person I used to be in the infinite wilderness plane. Next, there will be more surprises for you. Yi Guqin sneered. You're courting death. Gu Xiaoyang's. He could not accept Yi Guqin's tone, which made him feel humiliated. If I had killed Yi Guqin back in the Tianhuang Plains under the pressure of Jun Xiaoyao, I wouldn't be in so much trouble now. Gu Xiaoyang was a little annoyed. In the beginning, when he took away Yi Guqin's innate sword embryo, he did not care about the ant at all. That was because the gap between him and a low-level genius from a low-level dynasty was too big. It was because of Gu Xiaoyang's neglect and disregard that led to the current situation. However, there was no point in regretting it now. Gu Xiaoyang was determined to kill. Gu Xiaoyang took 7 steps and pointed at the void. He performed the Starry Sword Pavilion's Emperor-level movement technique, the Big Dipper star-stepping steps. Gu Xiaoyang's aura skyrocketed with every step he took. After taking 7 steps, his aura became even more powerful. He swung his sword at Yi Guqin. Starlight Origin Sword Technique. That was another Emperor-level sword technique that Gu Xiaoyang had. At that moment, he no longer held back and performed it with all his might. Starlight gathered, causing the 7-star phantom sword to shine brightly. The sword light was as bright as the stars. Yi Guqin's reaction was also very agile. He performed the ultimate move of the godly sword lightning controlling chant, Heavenly Execution. Moreover, it was not just a move, but also the power of the lightning sword technique. In an instant, the lightning flashed and rumbled. The blades of the swords collided. Lightning and starlight flashed, accompanied by the sound of metal clashing. Both sides were injured. However, in terms of physical strength, Yi Guqin was superior to Gu Xiaoyang, not to mention that he had the ancient god's heart sealed in his body. The ancient god's blood could continuously nourish his injured body. Gu Xiaoyang's physical strength was not weak, but in comparison, he was weaker than Yi Guqin. Boom. Yi Guqin and Gu Xiaoyang were like 2 huge stars that collided and separated in an instant. Then they collided and separated again. Their speed was so fast that they even left after images. It was a dazzling sight. Some of the weaker geniuses could only see the sparks from the collision of the blades of the swords. It was difficult for them to catch a glimpse of their figures. Heaven's punishment thunder prison imprison. Yi Guqin activated the domain of the lightning sword technique. Suddenly, the blazing ball of lightning in the void shot out countless bolts of lightning. It was like a cage that imprisoned the void in Gu Xiaoyang's body. It's over. Gu Xiaoyang is at a disadvantage in terms of sword principle. He only has the star sword principle, but Yi Guqin has 4 types of sword principles. It's terrifying. Seeing that Gu Xiaoyang was imprisoned, the surrounding geniuses secretly shook their heads. In terms of sword principle, Gu Xiaoyang was indeed inferior to Yi Guqin. At the same time, many people secretly looked at Chu Xuanjin. As a sword king constitution, could his sword principle be compared to Yi Guqin's? Some people were curious. However, the most important battle now was still on Gu Xiaoyang. If he was really defeated by Yi Guqin would very likely replace him and become one of the new top 10 young masters. Damn it, how did this kid comprehend so many sword principles? Gu Xiaoyang looked at the cage-like lightning purgatory in front of him with a sullen face. When he was in the infinite planes, Yi Guqin did not have the lightning sword principle. Obviously, he had comprehended it later. Even though Gu Xiaoyang hated Yi Guqin to the core, he had to admit that Yi Guqin had indeed surpassed many geniuses of the overlord forces in terms of sword principle. However, if he wants to defeat me like this, he's too naive. Gu Xiaoyang formed a hand seal and began to use a secret skill. As a genius of an overlord force, he did not lack any trump cards or secret skills. 9 stars secret skill. As Gu Xiaoyang activated the 9 stars secret skill, 9 lumps of star-like light appeared around him. At the same time, the density of Gu Xiaoyang's genuine qi rose steadily. In the end, it soared 9 times in front of everyone's shocked eyes. This was an extremely terrifying amplification technique. The 9 stars secret skill. It's definitely the 9 stars secret skill of the Starry Sword Pavilion. It's said to be one of the top 10 Archean secret skills, the secret combat skill. It's said that the real secret combat skill can increase one's combat strength by 100 times after it is activated. It's extremely terrifying, but it seems to have been lost. The 9-star secret skill is an incomplete version of the secret combat skill. It can only increase one's strength by 9 times, but it's already extremely terrifying. Some geniuses who knew a little about the 9-star secret skill of the Starry Sword Pavilion could not help but exclaim in horror. Obviously, Gu Xiaoyang had started to get serious when he activated the 9-star secret skill. Chapter 1305. The 9-star secret art, one of the top 10 ancient secret arts. Is it a remnant of the secret art of battle? Yi Guqin's eyes dimmed when he heard the discussions of the heaven prides around him. The top 10 ancient secret arts each represented the limits of a domain. For example, Yi Guqin's sky-devouring secret art was the Tao of devouring and refining. The divine movement secret art was the Tao of extreme speed. And the secret art of battle was the Tao of attack. How terrifying would it be to increase one's battle strength by 100 times? It could be said that if Yi Guqin could display the secret art of battle, under the premise of 100-fold increase in battle strength, he could kill Gu Xiaoyang with a single sword strike without any suspense. But perhaps because the secret art of battle was too heaven-defying, there was almost no complete secret art of battle that had been circulated. The 9-star secret art of the Starry Sword Pavilion was just something that some important figures had extracted and comprehended from some remnant chapters. But even if it wasn't as heaven-defying as a 100-fold increase in battle strength, a 9-fold increase in battle strength was already very powerful. In a great battle, it would play a decisive role. In the Starry Sword Pavilion, the 9-star secret art was never taught to outsiders, and only some elite disciples could practice it. Of course, Gu Xiaoyang was also qualified to practice it. At this moment, Gu Xiaoyang's aura had skyrocketed by 9 times. His true qi soared into the sky, and the heaven's punishment thunder prison seemed somewhat unstable. Gu Xiaoyang said in a cold tone, "Yi Guqin, you are quite capable to force me to use the 9 stars secret technique. However, this is the end of it. Even if you have transformed into the leakless divine palace, your genuine qi will not be able to suppress me." Gu Xiaoyang's words were indeed the truth. Yi Guqin's true cultivation level was only at the 4th layer of the divine dwelling realm, which was 3 levels lower than Gu Xiaoyang. He relied on the leakless divine palace to be on par with Gu Xiaoyang in terms of true qi. And now, Gu Xiaoyang had displayed the 9-star secret art. and his true chi had skyrocketed by 9 times, which in turn suppressed Yi Guqin. Falling Star Sacred Sword. Gu Xiaoyang clenched the 7-star secret god and slashed out again. But the power of this sword strike was completely different from the previous one. The sword radiance pierced through the air and directly broke through the imprisonment of the heavenly punishment thunder prison. Then Gu Xiaoyang stepped into the air and used the Big Dipper star stepping steps. His figure swept towards Yi Guqin at an extremely fast speed. Polaris Cross Sword. Gu Xiaoyang swung his sword horizontally and vertically. A dazzling and sharp cross-shaped sword projection shot toward Yi Guqin. Baji Reincarnation Sword Technique, Heaven's Extremity. Yi Guqin hurriedly swung his sword down vertically, and the condensed sword chi slashed down from the sky at the same time. However, in this clash of extreme moves, Yi Guqin felt a terrifying shockwave far stronger than before exploding. He retreated rapidly and coughed out a mouthful of blood. Gu Xiaoyang's combat ability was also extremely terrifying. He flashed over. Among the 9 clusters of starlight around him, a cluster of starlight suddenly broke through the air. Yi Guqin held his sword horizontally to block the attack. The cluster of starlight exploded as he retreated once again. However, the other 8 clusters of starlight also charged over. Boom, 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 boom. 8 loud explosions shook the heavens. Gu Xiaoyang's movements were too fast. Moreover, the 8 clusters of starlight landed on Yi Guqin almost at the same time. Cough! Yi Guqin coughed out blood and fell back into the arena with some blood flowing out of his body. Yi Guqin is also injured. That's normal. Gu Xiaoyang used the 9-star secret technique to increase his combat power by 9 times. No one would feel good if they were in his shoes. Seeing the situation before them, some sky prides commented. Yi Guqin. Yin Wushuang's heart instantly tightened. She knew that the proud and unyielding youth would never admit defeat and submit to her. He would either win or die. Princess Fengxi, Su Jiqing, Jian Jinghong, and the other sword sons also had their hearts in their mouths. Yi Guqin, is that all you've got? Gu Zun's gaze was deep. If Yi Guqin lost in the end, he would be very disappointed. An ant will always be an ant. Don't you think so, Jun Xiaoyao? Chu Xuanjin put his hands behind his back and spoke in a condescending tone. Who knows? Maybe he'll surprise everyone, Jun Xiaoyao said with a calm smile. He had always admired Yi Guqin. He was an incredible swordsman. Now more than half of the sky prides in the entire Saints' Land of Inheritance began to support Gu Xiaoyang. They believed that Gu Xiaoyang could win in the end. Not only the sky prides, but many forces outside the sacred imperial realm also thought the same. He even used the 9-star secret technique. It seems that the outcome is more or less decided. Gu Xiaoyang hasn't even used his innate ability yet. Some warriors from the forces that sided with the Starry Sword Pavilion said. Don't be so sure. Yi Guqin is no small fry. He is the only one among the younger generation who can injure Di Haoyin to such an extent. Someone else retorted. Do you think I don't know? That borrowing sword from heaven is not something that Yi Guqin can use casually. He must have paid a great price for it, some warriors said faintly. Outside the sacred imperial realm, there was an uproar because of the battle between the two. Yi Guqin is capable to be able to force Gu Xiaoyang to use the 9-star secret technique. Unfortunately, he can't change the outcome, the 7-star lord said coldly. Qin Fuzi, Wu Hongyan, and the others looked nervous. If Yi Guqin lost this time, there would be no way for him to survive. In the golden arena of the sacred domain's inheritance, Gu Xiaoyang stood in the sky with the 7 stars mysterious god in his hand. He looked down at Yi Guqin, who was standing in the arena, and said mockingly, Do you see, Yi Guqin? This is the gap between you and me. Even after a year, I can still suppress you. Ah. Yi Guqin laughed. What are you laughing at? Gu Xiaoyang raised his eyebrows. It's just a warm-up, but you think you've already won. Isn't it funny? As Yi Guqin spoke, the sealed ancient god's heart in his body was beating loudly. Drops of ancient god's blood merged into his body. His injured body was recovering at an astonishing speed, and his aura had become stronger once again. Gu Xiaoyang's eyes twitched when he saw this. Even he didn't know how Yi Guqin cultivated such a powerful body. Humph, let's see if you can recover after I kill you. Gu Xiaoyang's figure broke through the sky and slashed down with his sword. Ultimate Star Stream Cut. As the sword slashed down, it was as if thousands of stars were falling. With the enhancement of the 9-star secret technique, it could split the earth into two. Seeing Gu Xiaoyang's powerful move, Yi Guqin focused his mind and used his ultimate move. A terrifying sword aura flowed around him. A pair of sword wings spread out from his back. The sword aura burst out and roared in the void. Because he was hiding his identity, he hadn't used his trump card for a long time. Now it appeared in the world again. 10,000 Gods Tribulation. Destruction of heaven and earth. Yi Guqin stomped on the ground. The sword wings on his back vibrated. He rushed up and hit the sky. Chapter 1306. The 10,000 Deity Tribulation had always been Yi Guqin's trump card. Moreover, the 10,000 Deity Tribulation was different from other sword techniques. It could increase in power with Yi Guqin's strength. In other words, the 10,000 Deity Tribulation could always accompany Yi Guqin and be his trump card. At this moment, the 10,000 Deity Tribulation displayed by Yi Guqin, whose cultivation had increased, was far more powerful than before. The sword wings on Yi Guqin's back spread out. Sword chi rushed between heaven and earth, and his momentum was extremely fierce. He rose against the momentum and rushed into the sky, colliding with Gu Xiaoyang, who was slashing down. Boom. A loud boom shook the world. Violent air waves and starlight splashed in all directions. The violent collision seemed to make heaven and earth lose its color, and the sun and moon dim. Cough. The two figures suddenly retreated. Their arms were bleeding and their chi and blood were surging. Then without any pause they charged again. Every collision would burst out a monstrous wave of sword chi. Some of the sky prides with lower cultivation could not even withstand the aftermath. It could be said that a battle between sky prides of this level was very rare, even in the entire South Horizon region. Yi Guqin's current strength was truly at the top level of the younger generation in the South Horizon region. However, Gu Xiaoyang's strength was not to be outdone, especially with the support of the 9-star secret technique. Any of Gu Xiaoyang's moves could increase his strength by 9 times. Every time they collided, Yi Guqin was under great pressure and his body would be injured. Because after the 9-fold increase, Gu Xiaoyang's strength was too strong. If it were any other sky prides, they would probably be killed directly. However, Yi Guqin relied on his strong physique to only be injured. Of course, Gu Xiaoyang was not in a good state either. Yi Guqin's leakless divine palace could also burst out 10 times his true chi. The two of them could be said to be exchanging injury for injury. It was just a matter of who could last longer. Yi Guqin, in the past, present, and future, you will be trampled under my feet. Surrender. Gu Xiaoyang's eyes were spewing flames of anger. He had not been able to kill Yi Guqin after so long, which made him furious and ashamed. If this dragged on for too long, even if he managed to kill Yi Guqin in the end, he would not be able to wash his reputation. Heavenly Wolf Star Slash. Gu Xiaoyang once again performed his most powerful skill. His star true chi gushed out. Starlight gathered around him, finally forming a Heavenly Wolf star chart. Kill. Gu Xiaoyang let out a murderous roar. The 7 stars mysterious god in his hand swept out, accompanied by a Heavenly Wolf's furious howl. In the face of Gu Xiaoyang's ultimate move, Yi Guqin once again displayed the god-slaying sword technique. Deity's Cry. The deity ////slaying star // This was also a powerful sword emperor sword 1000 emperor sword. Boom. It was as if a great destruction had occurred in the void as countless sword chi rushed in all directions. Yi Guqin coughed up another mouthful of blood. Sword wounds appeared on his body. Gu Xiaoyang was the same. Even with the 9-star secret technique, it was impossible for him to be unscathed. He would also be injured in such an extreme collision. It's really a showdown. These two are rare opponents among the younger generation of the South Horizon region. I'm really curious about the outcome of this battle, Dao Wuming murmured. On the other side, Gu Zun was also watching. Yi Guchen, you can't lose to Gu Xiaoyang. Otherwise, how can I defeat you? Gu Zun's voice was hoarse as he muttered to himself. He absolutely did not want to see Yi Guchen lose to Gu Xiaoyang. He also wanted to settle things with Yi Guchen personally. Clang, clang, clang. The battle was still going on in the Saint Emperor arena. Sparks flew as the swords collided. Again, heavenly jade meteor slash. Gu Xiaoyang pushed his strength to the limit and poured his true qi into the 7 stars slash. The entire sword seemed to be dyed with starlight and was extremely dazzling. He swung the sword like a galaxy falling from the 9th heaven. The starlight was dazzling, and there was endless killing intent in it. When Yi Guchen saw this, he flipped his hand and used his ultimate move again. 10,000 Gods Tribulation. Fall of the Masses. The second move of the 10,000 Gods Tribulation was performed. The sword qi was magnificent, reflecting the blood of all living beings. Blood flowed and all living beings cried out. This move was extremely powerful, and carried with it a tragic aura. Boom. The two swords collided, and the sword qi shook the 9th heaven. The killing intent of the 10,000 Gods Tribulation completely exploded. Gu Xiaoyang's body shook violently, and then he flew backward like a kite with a broken string. Blood spilled out. Gu Xiaoyang is at a disadvantage? Seeing this, everyone inside and outside the Saint Emperor realm widened their eyes. They didn't expect that Gu Xiaoyang, who had the 9-star secret technique, could not kill Yi Guchen. Instead, he was injured again. Outside the Saint Emperor realm, the 7th star lord, who was shrouded in endless starlight, was somewhat unstable. The space around him was shaking. Everyone knew that the Saint of the Starry Sword Pavilion was probably not in a good mood at the moment. Humph, it's not the end yet. The 7th star lord's tone was extremely cold. He still didn't think that Gu Xiaoyang would lose, because the 9-star secret technique was only one of his trump cards. In the arena of the Saint's inheritance, Yi Guchen and Gu Xiaoyang stood opposite each other. Yi Guchen was also injured in the collision. Blood flowed from his arm and dripped down along the blade to the ground. However, in comparison, Gu Xiaoyang seemed to be in a more difficult situation. He stared at Yi Guchen like a poisonous snake that was about to devour its prey. No one can defeat me, Gu Xiaoyang. No one. Gu Xiaoyang's eyes were scarlet. He held the 7 stars transformations with both hands, and the 9 stars secret technique was fully activated. Ultimate Star Stream Cut. Sirius Star Slash. Tianqian Meteor Slash. Gu Xiaoyang used 3 ultimate moves at the same time. It was worth noting that each of the 3 moves could be used as a killing move. At this moment, the 3 ultimate moves were used at the same time, and their power was combined. One could imagine how destructive it was. It was as if it could shake the world. Gu Xiaoyang combined the 3 ultimate moves into one. Yi Guchen die. Gu Xiaoyang dashed out, and the sword light seemed to have turned into a ray of starlight that could split heaven and earth. It slashed toward Yi Guchen with an unstoppable force. He's too strong. Countless geniuses around gasped. They thought that if they were in Gu Xiaoyang's shoes, they would probably be killed by that sword. Even geniuses at the level of Huang Qianqiu, Chu Xuanjin, and Jun Xiaoyao frowned. It was obvious that this move was not something they could underestimate. Everyone looked at Yi Guchen, wondering how he would deal with Gu Xiaoyang's ultimate move. Heh, now that's interesting. Yi Guchen's lips curled into a faint smile. He was calm and collected. Gu Xiaoyang saw Yi Guchen's smile and felt that it was very unpleasant. He said coldly, "You can still smile when you're about to die. I'll let you smile in hell then. Even the heavens can't take my life, Yi Guchen, let alone you." Yi Guchen also held his sword with both hands, and a terrifying sword qi shook the void. Vaguely, there seemed to be the silhouettes of a Buddha and a demon emperor behind him. Third style of 10,000 deities tribulation, Demon Buddha's tears. Yi Guchen looked up to the sky and roared. The Buddha and the demon emperor shed a tear at the same time. Falling on the 9-dragon thunder prison, he slashed out with his sword, and it was as if he could destroy 100,000 voids. The ultimate moves collided. Who would win? Chapter 1307. It was Yi Guqin's third move, Demon Buddha's Tears. Gu Xiaoyang's three ultimate moves combined into one. Both of them had used their most powerful moves. At this moment, when they collided, it was as if two great stars had collided, and endless ripples were emitted. The terrifying collision didn't seem like two geniuses of the divine dwelling stage, but more like two sovereigns attacking each other. The geniuses who were watching the battle were also pushed back dozens of feet by the shock waves. One could imagine how intense the collision was. Smoke and dust rose like a mushroom cloud, spreading in all directions. Countless gazes, both inside and outside the sacred imperial realm, pierced into the battle like needles. They wanted to know the result of the collision too much, because this move was likely to be the end of the battle. Under the nervous gazes of countless people, Yi Guqin's figure was the first to break free. He withdrew from the smoke and dust, with blood flowing from his body. But most importantly, Yi Guqin had a cracked golden armor on his body. It was the immovable ancient God King armor. At the last moment of the collision, Yi Guqin brought out the immovable ancient God King armor to help him block a lot of the impact and damage. Otherwise, Yi Guqin would have suffered even more injuries. The immovable ancient God King armor on his body was already cracked, which showed how intense the collision was. Yi Guqin doesn't seem to be seriously injured. Could it be that he still has the upper hand this time? If that's the case, then Gu Xiaoyang is probably in a bad situation. Seeing Yi Guqin's state, the surrounding people suddenly burst into an uproar. Everyone thought that Yi Guqin should have been seriously injured under the collision of such extreme moves. However, the situation was the opposite. Yi Guqin didn't suffer any serious injuries. That's great. Yan Wushuang, Jiling, and the others all had joy on their faces. It's not that simple. Gu Xiaoyang isn't someone who can be dealt with so easily. Jun Xiaoyao frowned secretly. Because of the grudges between their forces, Jun Xiaoyao and Gu Xiaoyang had many conflicts. Therefore, Jun Xiaoyao also knew that Gu Xiaoyang was definitely not that easy to deal with. Yi Guqin also knew, but there was no joy on his face. He stared at the place where the smoke and dust drifted away. A gust of wind blew, scattering the smoke and dust. Gu Xiaoyang's figure also appeared in everyone's eyes. When they saw Gu Xiaoyang's figure, everyone's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They saw Gu Xiaoyang held his sword with a calm face. There was a crack between his eyebrows, revealing an eye. This eye was dark blue like the starry sky, flickering with specks of crystal light. It was mysterious and deep, giving people a strange feeling. At this moment, starlight flowed out of this strange third eye and condensed into a starry sky barrier in front of Gu Xiaoyang, blocking the impact of the collision. That's Gu Xiaoyang's innate ability, stellar eyes. One of the geniuses exclaimed. Because the battle was so intense, many people almost forgot that Gu Xiaoyang, as a 7th grade immovable star, also had an immovable star. The immovable star was a star given to Gu Xiaoyang by the heavens. It was also one of his trump cards. What a surprise! I didn't expect that an ant could force me to use so many trump cards. However, the game should end here. Gu Xiaoyang's face was as cold as the abyss. He didn't say anything else and directly activated the power of the immovable star. Divine light of the starry dome. Bright starlight gathered in the immovable star, then turned into a blazing beam of light and shot out. Everywhere it passed, even the void seemed to be pierced. That was one of the ways to use the immovable star. Starlight gathered, an endless divine light burst out. Yi Guqin hurriedly blocked with his sword. The divine light bombarded the blade, and a powerful force exploded. Yi Guqin's figure quickly retreated. Gu Xiaoyang held his sword and took the opportunity to attack again. At the same time, the immovable star was still shooting out divine light. It could be said that Gu Xiaoyang was definitely going all out this time. Boom, boom, boom. The divine light of the immovable star pierced through heaven and earth and swept out in all directions, leaving no gap. Even Yi Guqin couldn't completely block it. His body was hit by the divine light of the immovable king armor. Even the immovable king armor on his body was pierced through, leaving a bloody hole in his body. So powerful. Gu Xiaoyang is going all out this time. He's going all out. He's even using his innate ability. Yi Guqin is in danger. The public opinion once again shifted from Yi Guqin to Gu Xiaoyang. One had to admit that this battle was full of twists and turns. No one was weaker than the other. Come on. Yan Wushuang and Ji Ling's hearts tightened again. The sword masters of the Sword Dynasty were also praying in their hearts. Outside the sacred imperial realm, the seventh star lord of the Starry Sword Pavilion, and the others relaxed. The scales of victory were tilted toward Gu Xiaoyang. On the other hand, Confuzi, Wu Hongyan and the others on the Sword Dynasty's side were extremely worried. The battle situation changed rapidly. Yi Guqin, who had the upper hand a moment ago, was once again in danger. Boom, boom, boom. The divine light of the immovable star shot out one beam after another without stopping. Each beam of light was enough to easily kill a third-layer divine dwelling heaven pride. But at this moment, they were all focused on Yi Guqin. PFFF. A divine light of the immovable star pierced Yi Guqin's shoulder again. Yi Guqin, you no longer have the power to resist. Gu Xiaoyang's lips curved into a cold smile. He was extremely confident in his eyes of the star. It was enough to completely suppress Yi Guqin. Oh, it's too early to say that. Yi Guqin didn't care. 5 elements sword Dao, cosmos sword formation of the 5 emperors. Yi Guqin once again brought out another peerless sword Dao. It was the 5 elements sword Dao that he hadn't used for a long time. Of course, the cosmos sword formation of the 5 emperors matched it. Yi Guqin could now perfectly display the power of the low-grade Earth-class sword formation. Emperor Jin, Emperor Qing, Emperor He, Emperor Qi, and Emperor Huang. 5 sword formations rose into the air, blocking the divine light that filled the sky. In addition to the 5 elements sword Dao's own sword Dao domain, the 5 elements sword domain gave Yi Guqin a chance to catch his breath. And this was the opportunity to counterattack. Azura Blood Sea kill. Yi Guqin used the 5 elements sword domain and the cosmos sword formation of the 5 emperors to defend, and the Azura Blood Sea to suppress Gu Xiaoyang. Starry River illuminates the 9 heavens. Gu Xiaoyang also activated the star's sword Dao domain to collide with Yi Guqin's domain. At the same time, he activated the stellar eyes to the extreme again. The glaring divine light of the stellar dome seemed to melt the void. It's useless, Gu Xiaoyang. This move will end your life. Yi Guqin's eyes shone with a cold light as he began to activate his power. The Azura Blood Sea's domain gradually overlapped with the 5 elements sword domain. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying crushing force burst forth, as if it could destroy all the stars in the sky. What kind of move is this? Gu Xiaoyang's face changed for the first time. He was shocked. Not only him, but the surrounding sky prides who were watching the battle were also shocked. That technique again. Huang Qianqiu's eyes were blazing like 2 small suns. This technique was exactly what he wanted to get from Yi Guqin. Princess Luoho, who had also seen this technique, trembled slightly. The power of this technique was still fresh in her memory. Of course, there was another person who was very surprised. It was Chu Xuanjin. He doesn't have the Sword King constitution. How can he integrate the sword Dao, let alone the sword domain? Chu Xuanjin's face turned pale. He could not believe it. The sword Dao integration technique was Chu Xuanjin's trump card. How did Yi Guqin do it? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.